the third. He's going to be held up. Fermin with an RBI hit. It's 6-5. The changeup has perplexed him all night. Let's see if he can sit on one and pound one. Runner goes. Swing and a miss. Crooks chases the changeup. It was helmet high. And that's the second out. Swing, fly ball center, but it's going to be caught. And the Cardinals settle for 3 in the 8th. Swing and a shot hammered to right, but the Phillies survive. 6-5 is your final. First save for Bolin, and Don Mattingly, with no options in his bullpen, steals a 1-run win in the series opener.
That's what it sounded like last night on the Cardinals TV network. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Alex, I was at the game.
Would you say it was a normal one?
It was weird.
Yeah,
it was super weird.
I saw the first not covering, or the Dobbins making the error, and I'm like, it's what I called. I knew something was going to go down.
There was a no-hitter for, 5 innings yesterday?
I heard he sabotaged that.
He was so trying, and I'm like, BK, wouldn't it be cool to see no-hitter? It's going to be a bullpen no-hitter, a combined no-hitter. Who cares about that?
Am I wrong?
It's a no-hitter.
Ridiculous.
Do you care about a combined no-hitter?
I think a no-hitter's cool no matter what,
the
man.
odds of you seeing a no-hitter in your lifetime while you're there in attendance is like 0.1%.
This is the guy that also, 5 years ago, I think it was either the Tigers or the White Sox were no-hit, and you said, well, it doesn't count, it's the White Sox.
It was the Pirates. I remember that.
Still says it doesn't count because it's the Pirates.
I stand by my statement. It was not a...
This is why weird crap happens when you go to things.
Yeah, it was
because you're not fun.
Weird.
People think I'm not fun.
Okay, time out. You're
not
allowed
fun.
to say that about me.
You're not fun, man.
I enjoyed the game
you're
yesterday.
not the messenger for this.
Yeah, thank you, T-Bone.
I'm just saying, he's not fun.
It was a super weird game. It was a pretty ugly game. It was a very long game to be in attendance for. There were 15 combined walks.
Oh.
There were 20 combined strikeouts.
That's my nightmare.
And there were 16 combined hits. It was a two true outcome game where it was walks and strikeouts because there were not a whole lot of home runs. A lot of balls that would have been homers elsewhere that were not at Busch Stadium. Alex, yesterday, though, my biggest takeaway from the game, they got caught in between. And I'm not talking about any one individual player. I'm talking about the organization got caught in between yesterday. The big inning that everybody's going to point to is the 8th, right? Cardinals mount a bit of a comeback. You feeling all right over there?
Yeah. I just had to clear my throat a little bit.
Next time there's a little cough button, you can press that. All right, Danny Mac.
Say the name. Okay.
Wow. Damn, man.
I say that with love.
Wow.
I wasn't going to say the name. I knew the name I was thinking of.
Now I'm just going to do it once a segment. To piss them off.
Would you breathe heavy into your mic for me, too? No, thank you.
The nose?
You want me to eat while I'm next to it? Hold on, let me see if I can pull one of these off.
No, that's only when we're doing an interview.
I sucked up too much air.
There's too many inside jokes going on. All right, bottom of the 8th inning. Cardinals are down 6-2 to open it up. They've got Herrera, Burles, and Walker coming up, and I was like, okay, this is your shot. Because they had a terrible pitcher in the game who had thrown 100 pitches at this point.
That poor guy, he needed a hug.
He was wearing it. They were
so
up
hot.
6-2, and they were like, hey, man, you're finishing this game. Good
They
luck.
kept saying on the broadcast, too, Chip was like, this guy's going to be out there for the rest of the game.
They had nobody else. They had literally one other reliever available, and he pitched the 9th. So this was the Cardinals' shot, and they knew it. The Phillies knew it. Everybody in attendance knew it. They've got to take advantage right here. They did. They had a really great inning offensively. Double, single. Really bad at-bat by Nathan Church. Double by Wynn. Fermin singles. A lot of people got on to Pop Warner in that spot. Hey, you got to send Mason Wynn. T-Bone, you and I were in attendance. We said the same thing live. Couldn't believe it. He got a great jump, was flying as he got to third base, nearly passed up Jordan Walker, and then looking back on it, you see the replays. Oh, yeah, he would have been out by a mile. But in the moment, it felt really bad because it's like, that's the tying run. You got to send him, make them make a play at the plate. He would have been out. But then you've got one out, Crooks coming up. A decision needs to be made. Righty on the mound. This guy sucks. That's unfair. This guy's really struggling.
I mean,
great pitcher compared to me, but he's just relative to big leaguers, not a good one.
The Tone Ranger is here today, ladies and gentlemen.
Jimmy Crooks at the plate, left on right. This is a matchup that you would really like to see if you're Ollie Marmol for your future. Can he come through in a big spot? You're 3 games out of a playoff spot. This is the team you're chasing. You're at home, 2 on, 1 out. You're down by 1 run. Crooks, all you have to do is put this thing deep in the air. That is your game. You put the ball in the air and you hit it hard and deep. He couldn't do it, man. He could not connect. He struck out swinging, and it was a non-productive out in that spot. In the moment, me and T-Bone said, you should have pinch hit there. I get it, though, because you're in a spot where you're trying to find out what you're doing, not only for today, but for the future. And if Crooks is going to be a part of it, that's a spot he's got to come through in, man. He's got to be able to get that ball in the air right there against a really bad pitcher with a platoon advantage. That's the spot that you need him to be productive in. And he wasn't. They go to Torres in the next at-bat. He lines out to center. If the same at-bat happened the at-bat prior, where he pinch hits for Crooks instead of pinch hitting for Prieto, who, by the way, is an 0-for so far this year, you might have been able to score that run. But it didn't happen there. All he said afterwards, he regrets it. He thinks that he should have gone to Torres there, but he kind of got caught in between. I appreciate his candor and saying, hey, listen, that's on me. I should have done it differently. But in that spot, I understand where it was coming from. They're an organization that's trying to live in 2 different timelines, and last night it showed up on the field.
Yeah, I had 0 issue with Jimmy Crooks hitting in that position. Sure, you can pinch hit in that spot, but I think the more important factor in this season right now is finding out what these guys are. And I understand this series is a massive one if you're in the camp of hoping that this team can still push for a playoff spot. But I think if I want the team to push for a playoff spot, I also want pieces like Jimmy Crooks to come through in a big moment and figure out what you've got. So in a spot like that, and Jimmy Crooks has started to play a lot more lately from what it was when he first was called up to where we barely ever saw him. I loved the fact that they put him in that spot because you need to see what the guy is made of. And look, he didn't have a good opportunity on that one. You strike out on a foul tip. You go 0 for 4 in that game. He's probably eaten it a little bit tonight. But as a major leaguer, you're going to have to figure out what it takes to come through with a hit in that spot because everybody else in front of you did it. You didn't. And now you're the young player that's figuring out what it takes at the major league level. So I want the team to win. And when they were mounting that comeback, it was really exciting to watch and listen to and hear the fans get into it. But in the moment, not one part of me was like, we need a pinch hit here because it just felt like Jimmy Crooks is one of those guys. We talk so much about the depth of this catcher position and the team and how many guys they have on this roster. Man, start to figure it out. I probably would have been more frustrated if Crooks came out in that spot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I want to see what the guy is made of.
I was calling for him to be pinch hit like 3 batters before he got to the plate. I get it, right? I mean, I get from the perspective of, hey, this is the time of we sold at the deadline. We are going to try and focus on development now. And if that's the case, and if that's the way you're thinking, like Alex is, then I get it, right? I mean, I would say the same thing. I think the way they've been talking of, hey, we kind of want these games to have meaning down the stretch, and this was a playoff-type series, right? I mean, you're going up against a team that's directly in that last wild card spot. You're within striking range. I would have probably pinch hit for him in that situation. And the time for, we'll let Crooks get his at-bats and develop comes a little bit later down the road if this series goes south for you, but you had a clear chance to take game 1, and game 1 in which the next 2 are going to be extremely tough with Christopher Sanchez and Zach Wheeler on the mound. Like, now they're really in a chance of potentially being swept, and then we can really just write off the season and won't even have to have this conversation moving forward. But I would have gone to Torres in that spot. I set it up at the press box at the time. I would have gone to Brian Torres, go for that contact with second and third, and the roster's built for that kind of situation where the whole reason Pajes is on the roster is so you have that catcher when Herrera is DHing. If you pinch hit, you have a catcher to go into the game. So I would have pinch hit for him in that situation. I think he's still getting plenty of at-bats because they have turned to him to be a starter, and I know they've told us in the past, pulling a guy for 2 innings for defensive reasons when they are developing in the outfield, that's not a major impact on their development. I would think the same would have to be true for 1 at-bat in a game like this.
Maybe. It is a high leverage at-bat, and you can't recreate that.
You can't replicate those.
You know, like that is something that you can only, you can't manufacture it. You've got to feel that pressure in the moment. And some guys react and respond differently to it. And Jimmy Crooks did not respond well in that moment yesterday. And it was not abnormal. I don't know how you guys felt going in. I assumed that was going to be the outcome.
I did too.
Yeah.
I thought a double play. I thought he was going to hit.
was runner on second and third.
No, I thought he was at first, and Fermin stole in the middle of it. I thought when he stepped to the plate, it was first and third.
It was Wynn, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
No, Fermin was on first, wasn't
Fermin singled.
Fermin stole second
you're right.
in the midst of Jimmy Crooks' at-bat.
I apologize.
You don't watch the
actually,
game,
you're
Alex.
right.
He
I
was
just
even
remember
there.
second and third when he was actually taking the swing. Good call, Alex.
I just didn't think he'd make contact, so I knew there would be
I
no
assumed
play.
he was gonna. I assumed he was gonna strike out. That was my thought going into the at bat. Is this is not going to go well for him? But I also understand where you're coming from, Alex, of saying like this is a spot where you have to stick with Jimmy Crooks. It's the difficulty of being in the position that they find themselves in. The truth of the matter is you were going into yesterday 3.5 games back of this team. And so if you want to look at it through that prism of if we win this series, we are right there. We are like on the doorstep of a playoff spot. And so we should be doing everything possible to get there within this series. Just take your best shot for 3 games in a row and find out where the chips are afterwards, and then you can adjust accordingly. That's one path. Another path is what happened yesterday. Hey, yeah, we're 3.5 games back, but they've got Zach Wheeler and Christopher Sanchez going the next couple of days. How do you think that's going to go for the Cardinals? And in this game, prior to that at bat, they had played terrible baseball for the most part. Mm-hmm. You had Hunter Dobbins, who threw the ball over his first baseman's head. You had walks galore. You had Ferguson come in and walk the 9-hole hitter, who was a catcher, who coming into the day was batting 125 on the season. This is the guy that he comes in for, is Stubbs. He walks him on 5 pitches, non-competitive for the most part, to get to Kyle Schwarber, and that run scores on the next pitch where Kyle Schwarber ends up hitting the double. It scores Stubbs, and now you're down instead of 3-2, 4-2 in that spot. That ultimately becomes the game-deciding run. So, like, you cost yourself far before anything happened with Jimmy Crooks in that moment. This was about the quality of the roster and the quality of the players and a lack of execution, every bit as much as it was any one decision. But this moment stood out because it was late, the game was on the line, and you had a guy that's young that everybody was excited about 2 months ago that now I'm seeing send his ass down to AAA.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Gastelum. All of us wanted him here. Now he comes up. Yesterday he was great, but for the most part, he's been terrible. And everybody's saying, get him back down. I don't want to watch this guy anymore. This is the reality of a rebuild. This is the reality of developing at the major league level. It's going to look like this sometimes as they try to get their sea legs at the major league level.
Yeah, you can't have both. I mean, it's just too hard to do in the midst of a rebuild and try and win at the same time because there's guys that have those learning curves. And I, as much as I want the team to find ways to win, you're right, BK. Like there were other moments that they could have come through. It's just that's the one that people are going to point to because the rally had gone on for so long, and the best part of your order is the one that drew you closer. But 2 months ago, we were talking about Jimmy Crooks as the next core piece of the team. At the deadline, we were talking about the possibility of trading an Ivan Herrera because of what you've got in the system. And for me, you just don't replicate those situations. You can't replicate them as a pinch hitter. You can't replicate them in AAA. A guy who was 0 for 3 up to that point has not had any success in this game, knows the gravity of this game against the Phillies, and came up in the biggest moment of that baseball game. You find out what you're made of in those moments, and that, to me, is a lot more critical for a team in a rebuild than picking up a win here and still losing 2 of 3 to the Phillies.
From the text line, guys, Leo Bernal is the best catcher. Let's call him up.
All right, I'm
Cool.
in.
Let's put him up here.
I feel like we keep doing this.
Where's he going to play?
Right? Like, we did this with Jimmy Crooks. Jimmy Crooks, I hope people remember, when he was at AAA, he had played in 40 games. He had 13 home runs. He was slugging .570 and had an OPS nearing 1,000 at the AAA level. And everybody was saying, you got to call this guy up. I'm sick of watching Pedro Pajes. You've got to call this guy up. He's very clearly ready for the major league level. And since then, he got up to the major league level. He's played in basically the same number of games up here as he did down there. He's batting 178, and he has an OPS of .575. In other words, he's Pedro Pajes. The gap is significant between what you do at AAA and what you are at the major league level. And Leo Bernal, it very well may look the exact same. I was looking up yesterday because I was curious. What were Jimmy Crooks's defensive not numbers, but what was his profile as a prospect? What did the prospect writers say about him? Because let's be candid, none of us are watching the minor leagues on a nightly basis. So I read the third-party perspectives to find out, okay, what is this guy? What's he going to be? What should our expectations be? And I will base my opinion from that. And then we can adjust accordingly when we see them at the big league level. Well, for Jimmy Crooks, did you guys know that he was considered to be a defense first catcher with power? When you watch him, do you see that?
No.
I don't either. I see a power first catcher who happens to play the position. I think his framing's fine, but who cares right now with the ABS? I think his pop time seems fine, but nobody steals anyway, so whatever.
Blocking's below average.
It's terrible. It's been really bad so far. I would say he has been right there with Pedro Paz among the most underwhelming blockers behind the plate so far this season. I think Ivan Herrera is better at it than Jimmy Crooks has been. That doesn't mean he's going to be bad, but so far, it hasn't been great for him. So, moral of the story, this is just kind of how it goes, man. You see these guys, you get excited by them, they come up to the big league level, and then it changes. And we have to adjust our expectations accordingly. So, I'm glad he's starting. Yesterday was a bad moment for him. I think they should keep going back to him against right-handed pitchers. And we'll see what it looks like the rest of the season. And then there's going to be a decision that has to happen.
If that situation pops up tonight, pinch hit for him or let him hit?
Let him hit.
I would pinch hit for him.
I'd let him hit.
I would pinch hit for him, too.
I think they will pinch hit for him.
I think they will, too. I think based on the way Alex spoke yesterday, I think you have to – I get what you're saying if you can't recreate those at-bats. I also think you have to earn those at-bats by what you do in non-high leverage situations. And no offense to Jimmy Crooks, he hasn't earned those yet, right? Yeah. I mean, some of the underlying numbers say maybe he's going to start to break through a little bit, but the numbers don't show, and watching him with just the eyes, it doesn't match the eye test to give him a high leverage at bat.
I saw somebody tweeted out yesterday. He saw 12 pitches prior to that final at bat, and on 9 of them, he chased on 9 of the 12 pitches that were outside of the zone yesterday.
Yeah, that's not great.
No, not good. But you know what? I want him to take those at bats, and I want him to do that. Because by the end of the season, I'd like all the information in front of me as a front office to say, all right, we've got Rodriguez, who's probably going to be a AAA, Bernal, who's ready for the major leagues. We've got Pages, we've got Herrera, we've got Crooks. We need to start whittling this down. Heim talked yesterday about all of the internal competition that they've got. Create the competition. Keep giving them those at-bats so that I have all the information at season's end.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. Coming up in about 20 minutes or so, we'll get into questions and answers. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. That is where our friend Derrick Goold, Cardinals beat writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, will join us when he comes up next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, with Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, Cardinals beat writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. We got to hang out with him, watch the game last night out at Busch Stadium. He's Derrick Goold, joining us as he does each and every Tuesday. Derrick, appreciate the time, man. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks, guys. Good to hear from you. Better to see you at the ballpark last night.
No doubt. It was great. The game wasn't...
Nice to have, like, hecklers behind me.
That sounds like both BK and T-Bone.
I saw Derrick writing the, 30,000 word Q&A that you did?
Yeah. I think it was 993 words, I think is, or 9,993 words.
Was that just the questions or was that your responses? Because...
No, that was just the questions were 100 of those words, and then my answers were 9,900.
I think the last time I wrote something that long, Derrick, I was like in college probably, so maybe 10 years ago.
That was before AI could help you out, too.
That was when I had to add the extra, you double space and add a couple of extra punctuations to add that number or go a little higher.
All right, Derrick.
This might surprise you, but no, I don't. No, I don't.
It doesn't surprise me one bit, Derrick.
I never had that issue.
All right, Derrick, let's get into this from last night. We opened up by talking about how the Cardinals yesterday in the 8th inning, it kind of felt like they were caught in between, where you've got the Jimmy Crooks decision. He comes up to the plate. It's 2 on, 1 out, down by a run. And they decide to stick with Jimmy Crooks in that moment. Then all he says afterwards, I should have pinch hit there with Brian Torres to give us a little bit more contact in the moment. I think the decision to stick with him was understandable given the situation that the team finds itself in. But if you're just talking about giving yourself the best chance to win the game, I think in that moment, Brian Torres pinch hitting there probably gives you the best chance to win the game. What did you make of the decision and what it said about where the team currently finds itself?
Yeah, I think that you just gave it a great breakdown. Look, there are times when you want someone to have that experience so they benefit from it later. So it's not a surprise later. So, they know how they have like a buildup or a wellspring to pull from, right? Either successful or a lesson to be learned when they weren't successful, which is what Jimmy Crooks is kind of left with. But I think what we kind of got a sense of yesterday, and rightfully so, is that they really wanted to win that game. The Phillies were on fumes. That's PHUMES. They were completely without the relief that they wanted. They didn't have their best guys available. They had just been worked over. They looked exhausted in the late innings, and they looked like they were going to let some of their relievers wear it. And if the Cardinals had gotten to Painter earlier, he likely would have won it. This was a very vulnerable Phillies team for yesterday. And the Cardinals had their chances, and then had that great chance where a lot of balls in play, a wild pitch, a pass ball. There are any number of ways for the Cardinals to tie that game at that moment, and they got none of them. And the goal to win that game, the idea to see a vulnerable opponent and to take the win, I think in hindsight, they're like, that should have been paramount and not the development. Not, if you're down by 2 runs, right? Then you go, okay, Jimmy, see what you got. Let's see. Get one of those runs in, at least prolong the inning, find some way, get us closer. That's kind of the development moment. You're down by 1 against a team that is kind of wheezing and trying to just get by on the day. Go for the win. And that's probably the line. And because there's a lesson there in going for the win too, right? Like there's nothing wrong with learning by winning, right? There's a lesson there too. If Jimmy Crooks is pinch hit for to Jimmy Crooks, saying, look, you get that at bat if you are more contact oriented. So be that way, move that way. So it could have been a learning experience, but I think in the end they were like, man, that should have been a winning experience.
I mean, it's a perspective that I didn't even think of because, Derrick, we opened the show and I said I would have gone with Crooks. I had no problem going with it, but you're absolutely right. Like, thinking of putting yourself in Jimmy Crooks' shoes, it probably eats at you more when you don't get that chance and then you find out why you don't get that chance. And, we talked with Chaim yesterday, Derrick, just about this internal battle of all of these catchers with Bernal playing so well in AAA and Rodriguez playing so well in AA. Where do you view these internal battles right now and how the team looks at the plethora of catchers that they have?
I think they look at it as like a stockpile of talent. They have the benefit of having the best of a good group surface as their starter. There's nothing wrong with that. A team with 4 outfielders outfielders vying for 3 spots is going to be better than 3 outfielders vying for 3 spots. It's just, there's nothing wrong with having an accumulation of talent, especially if then you can possibly trade that talent if they're all in a roster spot or all arriving at the same time, which is something that, will be interesting this winter to see how the Cardinals kind of navigate that, because it does appear that you're going to have Bernal join this group. And what does that mean for the roster next year whenever baseball is played? Does that mean they continue to go with 3 catchers so that Herrera gets some time there? Do they feel confident enough in Herrera coming out of this year that they go with 2 catchers? And then who are those 2 catchers? I think, the most likely scenario is they go with 3. They look if they can trade Pedro Paz to a team that right now maybe isn't contending, but would really like a guy who has his experience, has his defensive profile, has a need for someone who can kind of bring some stability to a young pitching staff. We heard that described a lot. There will be teams that need catchers like that. And then how do the Cardinals get a good return on that? I really think, there's not an issue right now for them. I'm of the school of thought, and you guys can push back on this. I'm of the school of thought that too much talent is never a problem, because then that just makes the talent that gets the playing time that much better. We've seen times when the Cardinals have a top prospect who plays the same position as their best player. That's not a bad thing. One of them either has to move or there's a trade that changes the team radically. Those are both good outcomes. And that's the case here with catcher. Not to say that that's where the best player are, but this is the best collection of players that the Cardinals have at a single position. And that's going to sort itself out. Performance is always the answer. And if they perform, they'll either find a place for them in the majors or they'll find a trade that benefits them elsewhere.
Yeah, to kind of go off of that, Derek, I don't think it's a problem for them right now, and I like what you said about the trade. I think it can become a problem if you eventually, as an organization, just hoard all of that talent and decide, no, we're not making the move here. We think that we can just keep these guys internal. We want all of this talent at that position. Eventually, you probably have to trade from the strength in order to improve your weaknesses, right? But I don't think they're in that spot just yet where it's necessary.
I don't think they are right now.
I think this offseason, as you mentioned, is probably when you have to make some kind of a decision there. I think you could have done it at the deadline and it would have made sense, but I don't think you were forced to unless there was a return that made sense for you.
That was my biggest thing that I was going to follow up with. Like, when do you make that decision? And it sounds like it might be this offseason.
I think this offseason or next year at some point is probably when you're pushed to do that. Do you agree with that, Derek?
Yeah, I think so. I think, depending on how this offseason kind of unfolds, right?
Right.
There's going to be a bit of a stall, right? We know there's going to be a lockout. That's going to freeze all the transactions. So do the Cardinals jump at the chance to, clearing a spot on the 40 becomes a big part of that, right? If you can trade Pedro Paz or another catcher for somebody who is off the 40-man and doesn't need to be protected, that alleviates some of the decisions that the Cardinals are going to have to make with protecting prospects. For Rule 5, they don't know whether it's going to come or not. It's a weird time, but the value of that roster spot could really influence this decision.
We're talking to Derrick Goold here on 101 ESPN. He joins us each and every Tuesday on BK and Ferrario. Derrick, I did want to talk to you a little bit and get your thoughts on air. What we talked about yesterday at the ballpark, which is the Ivan Herrera of it all, right? As a catcher this season, I would say framing-wise, he's been fine. Blocking-wise, he's been fine. I don't think there's real game-calling-wise, based upon everything that we see publicly, seems like it's been fine. To good,
it's been improving.
Yeah.
It's been improving, yeah.
The one thing that still stands out as a huge negative for him, and we saw it exposed over the weekend, is the inability to throw out runners on the bases. But you were explaining to me, and we talked with somebody with the Cardinals organization yesterday about why teams aren't stealing more against Ivan Herrera, and really just in general, why they're not stealing against anybody the way that you would maybe necessarily expect them to. For our listeners that were not privy to that conversation, can you explain to them why you believe teams aren't running wild when Ivan Herrera is behind the plate this season?
Yeah, all right, here goes. Ready for the math? No, I'm kidding. But it is all math.
I work with BK. I'm ready for it.
It is entirely math. It is a risk management scenario. It's they want to be, a lot of times these teams want to be 100% sure that they're going to make it. And they do the numbers on that. How fast is this pitcher to the plate? How fast is that catcher to second? How fast is that runner from first to second? Do they get a good jump? All of that. They add it all up. If it is on one side, they go. If it's not, they don't. And it's almost like, like we were talking about yesterday at the ballpark, is like some of these teams are going to be like, if it's not 100%, we're not going to go. What the Cardinals ran into was a Rockies team that is trying to aggressively invigorate the athleticism of the team that they have and are using this time like spring training to go. What's the harm? You're 412 games out. Go. Like, get your, see what it takes, push the envelope. We hear teams talk about it that way in spring training, is like, if you see you have a base, go find out where your limit is. Let's know where that equation is, so during the season we can make that call appropriately. And you also know how fast and how far and what you have to do to get there. These teams, in a lot of ways, the bases are so valuable. The outs are so valuable. And then, of course, there's actually the value that it has to individual players. These numbers are actively shaping, in some ways, for some young players, what they make, right? That bonus pool is based on wins above replacement and what cash or check they get signed or issued to them at the end of the season. If you are doing things to harm your WAR without knowing that it's 100%, that can cost you money. From the bonus pool, that can cost you an arbitration, all of these things. So you have those factors funneling in to this decision on whether to steal or not. And that so often influences teams making the call or players making the call that, goodness, man, I didn't feel like I had it, or I didn't feel I had a good jump, or I wasn't 100% sure that I was going to take it. Look at the steals that we do see happen. Take the Rockies aside, because the Rockies did push the envelope, to their credit, and they also had a pitcher, and I'll get to that part too, that was not really monitoring the running game. Liberatore was off. They were talking about his head, right? He wasn't checking, and they knew they could go. So it was like this confluence of events. You had a Rockies team that literally, before that Saturday game happened, I was talking with one of the Rockies folks over there, and they were telling me about how that was something that they wanted to do. So it wasn't like after the fact, oh yeah, this is something we're trying to, it was ahead of time that they were telling me this is something we're going to look to do. And then they found a pitcher willing against a catcher who has also struggled with it. But you look at all these factors that are coming in and look at the steals that we do see. How many of them are close, right? Like if a guy doesn't stumble or doesn't get a bad jump, how many of them are close? A lot of them are going for that 100%. And it's an equation that Major League Baseball is going to try to continue to work on. Theo Epstein was among the group that wanted to break that equation, to break the math by making the bases larger, by changing some of the things, the throw overs, all that stuff. They're trying to break the risk management equation to make it more exciting, to get more steals. They just haven't yet. The other part of it is, and Cardinal fans will know this well because I'm sure they shouted at their TV screen, maybe even came to the ballpark and shouted, is how often did you see teams steal on John Lester? Everybody knew that he was not going to throw over, and yet it wasn't always a green light to go. There are things that the first baseman did, Anthony Rizzo at the time, or the catcher, whoever it was, did at the David Ross deserves credit. Wilson Contreras was part of that. There were things that they did as well to patrol the running game, to minimize that, to cover for Lester. And we do see some of that as well. This is not just on Herrera. This is on the fact that Cardinals are clearly playing into teams' hesitance to steal unless it's 100% or 93.5% or whatever that number is. But also, you're asking more of the pitcher. And on Saturday, they got less from the pitcher, and you saw what happened.
So, and just hearing all this is fascinating because for the longest time, the Cardinals have always valued the defense behind the catcher position, especially when you have a Yadier Molina who always is a threat to throw somebody out, and it changes the dynamic of the other team. Does it change the way that Cardinals or even other teams, Derrick, evaluate their catchers moving forward to where maybe it's not as important to have that skill set versus other skills in terms of becoming an everyday catcher for the team?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I think we're watching this evolve in real time. It's the ABS factor, right? Okay, so if you have ABS, how valuable is framing really? And that's been the question that catchers asked during the process of introducing ABS. That is a question that folks who advocate for catchers, like a Mike Matheny, had always asked during the early days of ABS and the early talk of that and going to robo umps. This is always the question was, okay, if you're going to have this technology and you're going to have that available to catchers and pitchers, even in a challenge system, but definitely if it was calling all the pitches, then what value does framing have, and does catcher become a more offensive oriented position than it ever had been before? It used to be an annual right around here. The offseason would come, and before Thanksgiving, the Cardinals would go out and get their catch and throw catcher, who was never going to play behind Yadier Molina, but he could catch and throw. We would make a list like, okay, who throws out a bunch of guys, who has great arm strength, who is reliable. All right, Einar Diaz, yeah, that's the guy they're going to go get. It was pretty paint by numbers at that point, but that position is changing, and we're not yet sure. Still so much of this ABS stuff, while we have so much information, we're still in the first season of it. And there's a real question as to what does that bring out in the catcher position? Does it put an emphasis on arm strength and a willingness to throw, and then really tilt the line more towards offense? Does it make that is offense more of a tiebreaker than defense for that position than it's been?
And if it is, that certainly would be in favor of Ivan Herrera for a team like the Cardinals and where they're at right now.
Yeah, it's a comparison that maybe is incomplete, but it is real. Look at Ivan Herrera's numbers compared to other DHs, and look at Ivan Herrera's numbers compared to other catchers. Because, and that's not to say that he outperforms catchers by so much and then outperforms the average DH by just a little, by less. It's the fact that you could then put at DH somebody who is better than an average DH. So it really changes the offense.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating spot. Derrick, we don't have a ton of time left, but I did want to ask this of you because I know it was a big moment in the game as well as a flashpoint, and a lot of Cardinals fans have latched onto it. In the moment, I thought you got to send Mason Wynn. Right? You got a great jump on the ball. We're going back to that 8th inning moment as well. This is prior to the big at-bat there from Jimmy Crooks. It's what made the at-bat so important for Jimmy Crooks, and you had the 8 and 9-hole hitters coming up in that game. Since then, I've seen some video, I've seen the still shots, and I'm not sure that I feel the same way. I think now, looking back on it, it was probably a good decision by Pop Warner to hold him at third base. You've only got the one out in that spot. Let's see if the next 2 guys can get him in. How did you feel now after seeing some of the aftermath and some of the video that's come out?
Well, I went back and watched it before asking the question of Ali Marmol last night. I did watch the replay. Did not have the overhead. Still have not seen the overhead, but I have talked to folks who have seen the overhead. In real time, what stood out to me, and I think we talked about this in the press box, is just the aggressiveness with which Mason made it even an issue. That stood out to me. He pushed. Now he did a flip around, right? He did the 180 to look at center, then back, and so that maybe slowed his jump a little bit, but that's the right read, right, on the situation. I was really struck by how Mason forced the issue. I have no issue. All the things that you described are all really good. He got to third about the time the center fielder had the ball, so that's a stay, right? It's likely that you hold him there if that's the case as far as the timing, and that was the timing, whether you saw that in a still shot or video or whatever. But I'm also okay if it was slightly in Mason's favor because they had one out, and if you're expecting the team to execute by getting a run in with one out to tie the game from third base, there are many ways to make that possible. And there is one way to really mess that up. And that is if Mason is out at home, right? So the many ways to score that run, I totally understand if you go that way and you hold him there because you have myriad ways to get him home from that point versus the one way where you have a whole lot of regret if he doesn't make it. I was really struck by the way Mason played that. And if if they were going to say, like, look, the guy's coming up, if, Pop Warner's doing an internal clock that he would never say publicly, or that Ali Marmol would never say publicly, and say, look, those guys coming up, they're not going to make contact. This is our spot. This is our chance. And Mason has the best wheels of the team. Then Mason made that possible. He did not give them a reason by cruising to third to get, okay, yeah, that's the situation. So I think, to me, that was like the very impressive part. Mason has played really well here over the last month. He's done a lot of things, not always the hits, but you look at how much more comfortable he is at the plate. But some of the plays defensively, even not the flashiest plays defensively, and some of the base running has just been really on point for him. And I thought that was another example of that. He was in position that if they made the call to push it, to say, hey, yeah, we need this run right here, right now, and that's our best chance to tie, he did not take a moment away to give them pause. But the circumstances, I totally get why they hold him.
5 doubles over the last 15 days for Mason Wynn. Please, more doubles from this lineup. That's all I'm asking for. We saw it last night.
More doubles.
Please.
Yeah.
That's a T-shirt.
Herrera, Burleson, JJ, Wynn, like these guys should all be hitting line drive doubles, Derek. That's what I want to see more of.
Yeah, doubles are damage. Make the T-shirts now. Doubles are damage. Let's see it.
We're gonna go ahead and
I'll take an extra large.
Yeah, no, we're gonna trademark that one right now.
Derek, appreciate the time as always, man. Great catching up at the game last night. We'll talk with you again next week.
Yeah, good to see you guys at the ballpark. Hope to see you again out there. Hope to see you in person as this season kind of winds down.
No doubt. That's Derrick Goold joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on 101 ESPN. We always appreciate his time. You can find his great work over at stltoday.com. That's where you can read his very lengthy, very informative Q&A that he does each week with the audience. If you're interested in Cardinals baseball, whether that's current, past, future, I think it's basically a must read, and put it on your list. Even if it's your Sunday reading, you favorite it for today, you get to it on Sunday, it is well worth your time. You're going to be more informed as a Cardinals fan because of it.
Yeah.
Anything stand out to you in particular there? Me and T-Bone talked to him about the Herrera thing yesterday, but it's really a fascinating discussion to me.
That is, I think the bigger thing that stood out to me is what he said about Crooks in that at-bat. I really didn't think of that, and it's a really good counterpoint. I mean, I still feel very comfortable in saying I'd like him to hit in that position, but Derek's absolutely correct, man. There's learning in the fact of you not getting the opportunity. Like, I think back to conversations with hockey players that I've had that get frustrated when they're not on the second power play unit, but at times I've talked with different players that say, well, I got to be better with my one-timers, otherwise I'm not going to get a shot. Yep. So if you're Jimmy Crooks and you get pinch hit for by Brian Torres, you look at that as, yeah, it's frustrating, but you know what? I got to be better. I got to make more contact. I need to stop striking out as much if I want to hit in that spot. Then you get a real tell on who the person is in that situation, because you go at it harder and you work harder to get that opportunity rather than sulking. And I'm not saying he would sulk. It's just something that you find out. So both sides give you information, but in the position that the Cardinals are in, I think Derek might have swayed my decision on that.
Goes back to what they did with Jordan Walker first couple of years, right? Where I remember we got frustrated on this show, and I remember talking to people around the Cardinals organization about why he was being pulled in the 7th inning. It's like, hey, guys, I understand that you're trying to win these games, but also you're not good. And it's August, and you're 10 games out of a playoff spot, and this guy's trying to get better in the outfield. Explain to me why. Why are you just punting on 2 to 3 innings of work in the outfield that could allow him to get on-the-job training in the outfield for a guy that clearly needed it at the time? And their retort was, well, yes, he does need it, but we don't think those 2 innings are the end-all, be-all, and we think it's more important for him to learn, hey, if you get better, you'll get these innings. And when we put you out there, it's because you've earned it. And right now, you're not there yet, and so we're going to put somebody in there that is going to give us a better chance to win, because that's the bottom line here. We win. That is what the Cardinals do. And right now, we're not doing a lot of it, but long-term, we're going to do more of it. And so that was the idea at the time, and I guess you could also apply that to that at-bat yesterday, Alex.
Yeah.
It's not the same exact situation, but it's the same premise.
And I do think there's an impact and an importance on making sure everybody around the organization understands that our main goal is always to win baseball games. That's the precedent you want to set for anybody that steps into that clubhouse. And I'm not saying that one decision took away from that, because there were other chances for you. I think they went like 2 for 11 with runners in scoring position. Did I look at?
No, yesterday they were great. I think it was
5 for 11. But still, you can take that stance of it. Again, I think it's important for him to get that at bat. I think if the same scenario happens today, I said at the start of the show, I would not pinch hit for him. I think I would pinch hit for him if the same scenario popped up today.
There was only one at bat that did not result in a hit with a runner in scoring position in the game out of the 11. That wasn't in that inning. So, like, you saw Church not come through. You saw Crooks not come through. You saw Torres not come through. Most of their at-bats that did not drive the runner in with the runner in scoring position, it was literally this scenario that we're talking about here. So that's why it stands out so much in the back of our mind, because otherwise they were really good yesterday with runners in scoring position. They just could not push through that final run to make things interesting. By the way, if you did not see, the Phillies manager after the game yesterday said if the game had gone to 10 innings, they would have thrown a position player.
Good God.
Oof. Makes it that much more
That would have
frustrating.
been a game that T-Bone loses his mind.
I wish people could have heard the Philadelphia beat writers on the elevator.
Oh, yeah. Dude,
I can only
They
imagine.
were saying, Don Mattingly would be shipped out of town if they would have allowed that guy to go in the 9th inning.
they couldn't believe
were
what they
shocked.
did yesterday with that reliever, where they were like, listen, if you're losing, I get it, but you're winning the game 6-2, and this guy is just out there
Talk about your
as
players.
a sacrificial lamb.
Talk about your players not having any trust in your manager if that happens.
BK and I were looking at him going, first time.
Apparently.
We did Zimmerman and Schuster in a doubleheader.
That's unfair. Zimmerman was fine.
Yeah, sorry. We did
Zimmerman-
Schuster in a doubleheader.
Zimmerman, yeah, come on.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers is next.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals fell to the Phillies last night 6-5. Game 2 of their 3-game set against Philadelphia is tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch. Christopher Sanchez will be on the mound for Philadelphia. Andre Palante gets the start for St. Louis. And news out of the NFL, according to Adam Schefter, the Minnesota Vikings are naming Kyler Murray their starting quarterback. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an Icon Heating and Air Conditioning dealer.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. From the 636, Alex, yesterday, NHL.com released their top 20 defensemen in the NHL. To no one's surprise, there was not a blue listed, but does Alex think that Broberg would have cracked the top 50 if that was the list?
Probably not, because I think it's just such a small sample size and he doesn't put up the points. I think this season might be the season he puts himself into that conversation. I don't know if he'll ever get to top 20, but if you want to go off of a top 50 defenseman, I think if he has a big year this year, he's probably in that conversation. I think Parayko probably cracks the top 50 for how many minutes he eats, for how many blocked shots he has, and just the role that he has played. I think he cracks a top 50 before Broberg would.
Trying to see here on this list where I think he could potentially, let's go to 15 to 20. Roman Josi, no. Josh Morrissey, no. Jackson Lacombe, you think he's comparable to Lacombe?
Broberg? Yeah, I think he's a better defender than Lacombe. I don't know if he puts up as many points as Lacombe. I actually
points
think
last year.
I think Morrissey's actually not that bad of a comp for Broberg. If he gets to that point threshold. I don't know if he's ever going to do 70, but if he gets power play time, I think he could be a guy that puts up 50 points in a season. I mean, I don't know if that's too outlandish. And
what did he have last year?
Broberg, 30? Does that sound right? He didn't get to double digits in goals.
Finished with 34 points last year.
Yeah. Got power play time towards the end. I think that's where he started to rack up a little bit more points. I don't think Morrissey's that outlandish. So I'd say somewhere between Morrissey and Lacombe.
Victor Edmond at 18, Shea Theodore at 19, Devon Taves, at 20. I think that's probably the range you're talking about. I think somewhere around there is probably where you're hoping Broberg ends up, kind of in that 15 to 20-ish range. Because he's not Brock Faber, he's not Adam Scott, he's not Slavin, he's not Charlie McAvoy. Like, once you get into the top 10 to 15, talking about guys that have 60-plus point potential, and that's just a different category of defenseman compared to what you have with Philip Broberg.
Yeah, I agree. But I do think he'll start climbing that up over the next couple of years if the team is good, because now you got a larger sample size and more of a defined role as a number one. That's how you get into those conversations.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. From the 636, Alex, do you think Parayko finds a little bit more offense again in 26-27?
Maybe. I think they've got a lot more options now so that they don't have to rely on him as much. He's not going to get power play time. Just really comes down to who his pairing mate's going to be. I think if you're playing the role of kind of letting the younger guys flourish with you, like a Theo Lindstein, maybe the offense takes a little bit of a step back, but the less time he's playing in the defensive zone, the more time you're going to see in the offensive zone. But I think he'll float around where he always is, probably around 30 to 35 points and maybe gets to 10 goals.
I think a lot of us kind of fell for the 16-goal season in 24-25, when in reality that was just a unsustainable shooting percentage that allowed for that to happen. Here's his shooting percentage over the last 5 years. You tell me which one of these is not like the others. 4-3, 6, 4, 12.
That one.
That's what happened. He had the same, basically, same number of shot attempts, same number of shots on goal as he's had over the last 5 years. The difference is a whole hell of a lot more of them went in the net. It would be like if you hit the ball the exact same this year versus last year. Last year you had a 330 average, and this year you have a 220 average. And in both seasons, the expected numbers were about 235 batting average. Well, that first year wasn't real. It was a mirage. It was batted ball luck. And then the next year, that's a little more representative of what you are as a hitter. That's Colton Parayko. He's not a 16-goal scorer. He's probably more of a 5 to 10 goal scorer guy.
I think he's definitely a guy that can get to double digits, but you're on the low end of double digits, never surpassing 12, in my opinion.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, do you expect to have more fantasy football talk and guests on the show going forward? I don't know about guests, but yeah, for fantasy football talk, I think we'll have a little bit of that this year. It's the expectation, especially as we get closer to the start of the season. I would say starting maybe in a week or two, start doing a little bit more on drafts, who are the guys that we're targeting, that kind of stuff. We always do a little bit of that this time of the year. So yeah, it's got to be a little more generic, though. The thing that's tough with talking about fantasy football on the radio, so much of it, people want it to be individualized for them, where it's like a start-sit conversation. That only applies to you. And so I'm not saying this to like demean your value. We can't do a radio show for one. We're trying to do a radio show for thousands. And therefore, it has to be a little bit more of a bigger picture conversation as opposed to, hey, I have this player and this player. Who should I start?
Yeah. What's the famous saying with fantasy football? Nobody cares about your fantasy football team as much as you care about your fantasy football team. That's kind of where it comes down to. But I do have my first draft next week, which is very frustrating. Very frustrating.
I say my other league is
for it.
already like, I'm getting texts about it, and buddies like saying, hey, like, because in our league you can trade picks, and I'm getting texts about like, I can't even think about fantasy football. I'm in the mood for football. I'm not ready for fantasy football just yet.
I'm not there yet. Alongside
Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, a case that just became kind of official yesterday. Seems like it's going to have a pretty significant impact for the upcoming year for both SLU and Mizzou. We'll tell you about it in 15 minutes. But next, the Cardinals are starting to get the good version of Ivan Herrera at the plate again. But it's what he's doing behind the plate that seems to have the organization most encouraged. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. Might be happening, Alex. We might be seeing the return of Ivan Herrera. He now has 8 doubles in his last 12 games.
He's always been here, man.
He's on pace for 30 doubles on the season now. That'll play. 100 runs on the season. That's not too bad. Almost 20 home runs on the season.
Almost.
That's pretty darn good. And he's also still running with a 360 on base percentage. Again, pretty damn great. If I had told you guys coming into the season that Ivan Herrera in 2026, everything behind the plate outside of throwing out runners, he's going to be pretty good at. He's going to have a 360 on base percentage. He's going to have an OPS hovering around 800. He's going to score 100 runs. He's going to hit 30 doubles, and he's going to hit 20 home runs. How would you have felt about his 2026 campaign?
Successful. I'd say that's what you want in Ivan Herrera.
Yeah, pretty good
Just
campaign.
don't tell me that he's never thrown anybody out.
Yeah, leave that detail out.
I left that to the side.
He's a DH.
I think we all would have agreed, man, that's a successful year, and you've got a core piece of your lineup. There was about 6 weeks where it did not feel that way any longer. For 6 weeks, he looked completely lost at the plate. He wasn't walking anymore. He was striking out more than you typically would expect. He had 0 pop in his bat whatsoever. He looked lost. And so there was a stretch of time there where we were all looking at it saying, wait, what do they have? Like, is this going to be the moment where the league figures him out and, the Cardinals are left now with a below average defensive player, no matter where you put him, and a slightly above league average bat? And if that's the case, what's the value in that? Because that is not the kind of hitter that we were sold coming into the season. Now we're starting to see it play again where, all right, yeah, on base percentage spiking again, power starting to come. Maybe it's not going to be the 30 home run hitter that we were hoping for, but 20 plus with 30 to 40 doubles, yeah, you can definitely have that guy in the middle of a lineup for a contender. So it's starting to look like he's turning it around again, Alex, with his recent performances.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people expected him to come back down to where he used to be and the struggles to evaporate at some point. It's just at the time we were talking about how bad it looked, and the guy hadn't had a day off, and now he's in that same stretch to where they just continue to use him and he's continuing to power through. But that is, to me, a positive sign, just like it was with Jordan Walker earlier this season, to where you go through the slump and then you pull yourself out of it. The fact that Ivan Herrera went through what he went through and is now doing this, and if he can continue this down the rest of the season to where you see that doubles power, you see that ability to get on base like he's used to doing, you're right back to the confidence of what you had in your core 4 moving forward. And I think it might be even higher confidence because you saw what it looks like when it's bad, and he can find his way out of it, which is a real positive sign. All the while playing the catcher position, albeit 2 times a week, but he's still playing the catcher position because we talked about the fatigue factor wearing him down offensively, and that has not been the case this season.
Yeah, he was the guy that I circled as, when we talked last week or 2 weeks ago, of someone to keep an eye on in the second half. He was the number 1 by far guy for me to keep an eye on because I wanted to see if his bat would play more like it did in the first half before those struggles, because you look at the underlying metrics, and it looks like it might be skewed from that 6-week stretch of, hey, this guy just wasn't hitting the ball as hard, and that was a little bit of an alarm bell for me. I want to see if he get back to doing damage, right? He gets on base, that's fine. I think the way that you look at Ivan Herrera as being part of that core 4 is a guy that ends up slugging above 400 and is like 20 homers, 30 doubles. Even though I was hoping there'd be a little bit more power, almost 30 home run potential in his bat, it's okay if he doesn't get to that, if he's going to add doubles to that. And that's where I'm looking at this now in this stretch and going, okay, this is the guy that I'm willing to sign up for. This is what I wanted to see here in the second half. See him get right, get hot, and see if he can sustain that for the next 2 months here. And if he does, as we talked about it, now maybe not if they get swept by Philadelphia here this week, but then they can at least give themselves a fighting chance to potentially be in the wild card race, even though that's not the end-all, be-all. It will at least keep them afloat in this race.
I wonder if he could be your Matt Carpenter for this era. I know that sounds like such a strange comparison, but Matt Carpenter was a guy that if you just there were 3 different versions of Matt Carpenter while he was here, but if you go through his prime, age 26 to 32, Carpenter on an average basis was a 275 hitter, got on base 37% of the time, and averaged per season about 40 doubles and 20 home runs. What if that's just what you have right now with Ivan Herrera for the next 5+ years? I think we'd all sign up for that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a guy that can hit 2, 3, 5, 6 and be a driving force as to why you are winning over the course of however many years he can put up that kind of production for you. And much like Matt Carpenter, and let's be real, there wasn't a whole lot of other value there. He wasn't a great base runner. He wasn't a guy that you were saying was like a plus defender. He was fine as a third baseman or second baseman, but he was in the lineup because of his bat. He was a guy that you just, hey, what's his position? I don't know, but I want him at the plate. And that's Ivan Herrera for the Cardinals right now with what he's bringing for you. And I was looking this up yesterday because, again, he's on pace, is Ivan Herrera, for a 360 on-base percentage, 30 doubles, 20 home runs this season. The list of Cardinals players since 2000 to post those numbers, all of them in one season. Paul Goldschmidt, some of these guys have done it multiple times. Paul Goldschmidt, Matt Carpenter, Matt Holliday, Albert Pujols, that great Ryan Ludwig season, Jim Edmonds, and Scott Rowland. End of list. Those are the 7. Out of that list of 7 players, the only one to do so at an age similar or younger than what Ivan Herrera is at right now was Albert Pujols. All those other guys did it at a later date in their careers. In Major League Baseball over the last 5 seasons, the only players at Herrera's age or younger to post a season with a 360 on base, 30 doubles, and 20 homers. So just a really well-rounded hitter, basically, is what that means. Juan Soto, Gunnar Henderson, Bobby Witt Jr., Ronald Acuna Jr., Corbin Carroll, Matt Olson, Carlos Correa. Again, 7 guys have posted this kind of a season that Herrera is currently on pace for in the last 5 years in Major League Baseball that are at his age or younger. I think we're almost underrating how good of an offensive season Ivan Herrera is producing right now because of how dreadful it was for that 6-week stretch. And I think that kind of threw us off of the scent on what he was doing prior to that 6-week stretch and really what he's been doing since that 6-week stretch.
Yeah, and I think that kind of sways some of the decisions that you make this offseason if that's where you're at. If you end this and feel like everything matches out well, you got the offense, you saw the slump, you know what he's going to be like, and you know now that he can stay healthy. I think that was the biggest question for this season was, can you stay healthy for 162 or close to it? And he has shown the ability to do that. Now the next step is evaluating what else you have, like Derrick talked about, because now you've got a ton of assets that you can use. If Burleson's going to be around, Herrera is going to be a catcher for you, probably 2 times a week. Now you got to find the other catcher. And then that's where that internal competition continues to find out who gets that other spot until Rodriguez is here. And that also becomes trade capital for you to go out there and better your team.
In talking with Derrick and in talking with the Cardinals yesterday while we were out at the ballpark about Herrera, his inability to throw runners out, I specifically asked Ollie pregame, and this was on record, about, hey, you know, now that that's on film and the Rockies exposed what he can't do, what he lacks as a catcher behind the plate, do you think other teams take advantage of it now? And he was like, listen, that's been on film. Like, it's not a surprise that he can't throw runners out. I'm paraphrasing here, but T-Bone, tell me if I'm not basically saying what he said. This is not a surprise to teams that he struggles to throw runners out. It's been on film for multiple years.
It's like 1 for 50 over the last 2 years.
And that one is like
a pickoff.
Pickoff. It's not an actual throwing out a runner at second. So, yeah, no, it's out there. Teams know it. They're not taking advantage of it because either they can't or they choose not to. And Derrick explained it, I thought, well earlier today. If you missed it, we don't have to go through the whole thing. But basically, teams are saying if we're not having a 90% chance plus of taking that base, we're not taking it. My retort to that would be, well, you have a 100% chance because Ivan Herrera has not thrown a runner out at second in 2 seasons. That is a 0% caught stealing rate. And the retort back to me was, yeah, that's because they're choosing not to do it. Like, they are self-selecting the guys that would have otherwise been thrown out at second because they're not running. They're not taking advantage of it to the fullest extent of what they could. And that is what is preventing him from throwing runners out because they have so many numbers behind the scenes. They know when a guy can take second. And so you're not going to see them run wild the way that I would expect them to. And I think they should. If I was a manager of an opposing team, especially in the regular season, I would force him to make a play. Go do it. Go show me you can actually throw that guy out. I know what the numbers say and what they say it should be. Go do it. Go actually throw this guy out. But then I was also told, hey, the players have to be on board with that too. And if a guy's going through the ARB system and you're telling him to push it on the bases, that's great until he gets thrown out and he learns he lost out on $50,000 through the ARB process because he was thrown out an extra time in the middle of August. And so guys are less likely, less prone to do that nowadays because of the way that they are paid through arbitration. And is that like a me first mentality? Sure. But what if I told you, hey, if you do this one thing that, maybe gives you a 5% chance better of winning this game today, but it also potentially takes out $50,000 from your paycheck. Are you doing it?
No.
Because I think a lot of us, the honest to God answer is no. We're not.
Especially unless I'm the 1% in Major League Baseball that doesn't have to worry about that $50,000.
Exactly.
That $50,000 is my life.
It's huge, man. It's absolutely huge, especially if you're a guy that plans on getting paid 5 years from now after you're through the ARB system. So it's a whole lot of words to basically say this. I don't think his arms is as big of a liability as I would think that it should be. Until teams actually expose it, I think you just keep throwing him behind the plate, and he's a catcher for you for the next however many weeks, months, or potentially years.
Yeah. And I think the schedule that they do now, I think it works well. I think if you had him back there 5 days a week, maybe it would cause more problems. But I think if you're only using this guy 2 or 3 times a week and you have somebody else that you can use back there, there's not an issue with it. It just comes down to, do you feel like he's the guy that fits into your timeline? And I think we all agree he's at the right age. You've got the right control. He's not costing you a lot right now where you're at in your life cycle. And then that means you have to look at other areas of your team and try and use those pieces, because what you said with Derrick is probably the biggest concern, but it's probably PTSD from the last regime. You can't sit here and say, look at all this talent we have and just keep it all in the minor leagues and pretend that it's great to have it. At some point, you have to move forward. If you find the guy, you got to say, this is our guy, and we're moving forward as such.
Okay, so this is a text that we just got on the text line from the 314. Guys, he's allowed 34 out of the 35 base stealers to run successfully. That's insane. It's actually 34 out of 34 because the one is the pickoff. But here's the thing that I think is important to keep in mind here. Okay, he's done that over the course of 44 games behind the plate. Pedro Pages for the Cardinals this year has started 49 games behind the plate. He has allowed basically 20 base runners to steal successfully. Now, he's thrown out about 17 of them, but just bear with me here. Those extra 15 guys that made it successfully with Ivan Herrera, what's that worth to you to avoid that? Because to me, his bat makes up for those guys that are getting to second. When you're comparing Ivan Herrera at the plate compared to a guy like Pedro Pages, what is more valuable, the bat for Ivan Herrera or avoiding those extra 15 base runners from getting to second base over the course of a 45-game stretch? So basically, one time out of every 3 games, an extra base runner makes his way to second when Ivan Herrera is behind the plate, and you get the added benefit of Herrera's bat as a catcher, where you can get one more bat into your lineup as a designated hitter. That's more valuable, man. It just is. Yeah. So that's why I think they're continuing to go down this road until they're forced to make a decision. If Bernal gets here and the guy is awesome, great. If you then have Rainiel Rodriguez who gets here and he's awesome, fantastic. And now maybe that's your catching duo. But right now, Pedro Pages ain't forcing the issue. I'll tell you this much, based upon what we saw last night, Jimmy Crooks ain't forcing that issue just yet. Right now, your best catcher overall is Ivan Herrera. I know that sounds crazy because the guy cannot throw runners out. But right now, he's your most valuable dude behind the plate based upon everything else that he brings to the table.
I think I learned we don't have a good valuable catcher in the system. That's what I just
at the major league level.
Yeah, right now.
I also don't know what a good valuable catcher is anymore because it's not like what it used to be.
It's a great point. Yeah,
because the thing that will be interesting.
That's the thing of what this. Everybody is saying he's a bad catcher. We're comparing it to what Yadier Molina was in terms of how he threw every single person out. That's just not the way baseball is played anymore.
I'm comparing him to Wilson Contreras, who we tried to make a left fielder. Okay,
and honestly, he's probably better than what Wilson Contreras was.
I wonder if the perspective on Contreras is different in 2026 than it was in 2023. Though
I think so. Baseball has continued to
I don't know, because his was more of a game calling issue than it was.
That was pre-ABS.
If they had, I also think it was I think this is really what it was. It was a Yadier Molina thing. I think the pitchers had thrown to Yadi, were comfortable with that, Contreras wasn't Yachty, wasn't even close to Yachty. We all know that. And
yeah, they had catchers that were calling the game for them, and then it was like all of a sudden you need to call your game.
I think if you had Pages for the last 3 years and you had signed Contreras this offseason instead of signing him 3 years ago, I think Contreras is probably fine behind the plate, and it's a completely different story this year than it was when they signed him. Yeah. I think the factors that led to him getting thrown under the bus basically no longer exist. Not to the same degree, at least.
Yeah, that might be fair. I still think there were some real issues with the way he handled game calling and preparation. Like that one I still am going to stick with. I think that was a major problem for him, and I think that's why they moved him to first base. And like, look at him. I mean, he's become a valuable first baseman. Hell, he might win MVP. He's going to be in the MVP race with the Boston Red Sox at that position. And you're pulling his bat out of the lineup more games if he's a catcher, for example.
That's fair.
And that's one thing about Herrera. The way they've got it scheduled now, him as the backup catcher, I would say, allows him to play 3 games at the DH spot. The one thing that I wish that they could get to is October, so I could see how it would play and how they would manage it. Because
I think that would be different.
It would be fascinating to see how they would do it. Because in the regular season, sure, you can make the argument like you just did of, yeah, the bat makes up for the extra 15 extra bases he gives up. October, man, that's valuable. You know, and some teams will still run wild in October, like Milwaukee. They're not going to stop running because they have to do it, right? Otherwise, they're not going to beat some of these teams. Now, if you ran into Philadelphia, like, it's not like Schwarber and Harper are going to start taking off in October.
They should,
on you.
though.
They should.
I truly believe these teams should be doing it. They won't. You're right.
And it comes down to the pitcher, too, though, managing the game.
And that's where it would be fascinating to see how they would handle things in October if they got to that spot. They're not going to, I don't think. But if they did, it would be fascinating to see how they would approach the catcher position.
I think they would approach it as get the lead, and then you go to the defensive shift.
I do wonder about that, too, though, is like, okay, now you're pulling his bat out of the lineup.
Yeah, and what happens if you blow the lead?
Yeah, because you can't switch him to DH then, because then you have the pitcher hitting for you. Yeah.
It just there's so many different factors that go into all of this, and it's about how you're going to build your team for the future. A lot of people are bringing up guys right now, their designated hitters like Jose Fermin or Blaze Jordan.
Yeah, but
so it's not as though it's making a big difference for exactly.
It's been fine.
There will be a point in time where on those days that Herrera is at catcher to get Rainiel Rodriguez a day off of his feet. Rainiel Rodriguez is your designated hitter, who right now, according to some publications, is the #1 hitting prospect in all of minor league baseball. Yeah. That's going to feel a lot different than what you currently have. Or Alec Burleson is moving over to DH for a day off while Rainiel Rodriguez is playing first. You know, like there's going to be better options than this.
If this was year
today.
5 of the rebuild, then I could understand that frustration, but we're not there yet.
Coming up next, Mizzou and SLU might be 2 of the teams that benefit most from a recent 5th-year eligibility case. We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So there was an update yesterday, Alex, on a court case that I think a lot of college football, college basketball fans have their eyes on right now. It's the case that's working its way through the court system in Colorado. And if you're unfamiliar, the layman's terms here is basically this judge has ruled that fifth-year eligible players from the class of 2022 should still remain eligible. So in other words, if you're a fan of Mizzou basketball, Mark Mitchell would fit under this criteria. If you're a fan of SLU basketball, guy who would fit under this criteria is Robbie Avila, who could come back, play a fifth year this year. Previously, they had said, starting with the 2023 class, those guys and beyond have 5 years to play 5. That was the idea from the NCAA. Who could have seen it coming? There would be court cases that influence this.
Court is in session.
So now you have the class of 2022. A lot of these guys are going to court saying, hey, we believe that we are getting screwed here. We should be able to make money for a fifth year. This would be our fifth year. We should be able to come back. This is not a guarantee that it's going to stay implemented, Alex. It's going to work through more courts where they've got, it continues to rise up the ranks. I have no idea what's going to happen here between now and the start of college basketball season. I think for football, these guys are just going to be eligible. It could change at some point, but for right now, my guess is on opening night, you're going to see some dudes that are in their fifth year that are just out there playing football again.
Checks out.
Mizzou has one of them, Sterling Webb. He's playing defensive tackle for them again this year. He's already at practice working with the two deep, so God bless. The other piece of this, Alex, is that as of today, guys like Robbie Avila and Mark Mitchell technically cannot hit the transfer portal because technically they did not enter the portal when the season came to its conclusion. Now, that could change based upon
the new ruling.
A new court case.
Yes.
Bum, bum, bum. If they decide to sue and say, hey, our freedom of movement is being infringed upon based upon the NCAA, they'll probably win that case. Because every case that the NCAA goes to in court right now, they seem to lose.
NCAA is like, God, just stop bringing cases to us, please.
How much does this influence potentially how excited you would be for the upcoming campaign if you're a SLU or a Mizzou fan, Alex? If you could get Mark Mitchell or Robbie Avila back.
I mean, it goes to the all-time high. It's a 10 on the most excited meter if you can pull that off. I mean, you already, and I think on the basketball side of things for Mizzou, there's a lot of excitement for the class that they have brought in and the talent that they are going to have this year. Now add back in what Mark Mitchell was last year, who was basically like the catalyst for a lot of that team throughout the season. And then on SLU, I mean, I think SLU fans would lose their mind if that's the case, because you're bringing back Robbie Avila, who helped form Josh Schertz's system, and now you've got all of the hype for SLU this upcoming season, and you bring back a guy who basically is the identity of how Schertz wants to operate with more talent and more experience on a lot of those players. I mean, you immediately are probably the most favored team in the A10, and everybody is talking about that group moving forward.
He's also the perfect player to implement into a system because he's kind of like, I'm going to say this name and it's going to sound weird. I promise you I'm going to explain why. It's kind of like LeBron James, where he can play in any system because if you need him to be a distributor, he can be one of the best. You know what? This is a better version of this. He's kind of
like Blake Snell comment on Quinn Matthews.
He's like Nikola Jokic.
That's easier.
Yeah, that guy's not a future Hall of Famer.
You can have him on any team, and he's going to find a role for himself. He can shoot, he can drive, he can pass. And when you can have all of those different skill sets, and he can, he has a little bit of gravity to him in that he can stand on the three-point line, teams have to respect his three-point shot because he does have a bit of a shot from three. So he can fit no matter how the team is assembled because they assembled this roster at SLU this year, assuming that he would not be eligible. Mark Mitchell's a little different to me in that regard. I think if you're a SLU fan, you got to be thrilled. This guy coming back would be a huge coup for your roster. I don't know if he's going to want to play college basketball again, but if he can, great, fantastic. You do everything you can to bring him back. For Mizzou, I think you have to do it because he's just that good of a player. But Mark Mitchell kind of needs the ball. He basically does one thing. I get the ball, I drive to the rim, I score.
Well, that's not a team player.
It's not that so much as they've got other dudes on their roster now that also do that. Jason Crow Jr., their number one player heading into the season, a top 10 prospect in basketball from last year's high school ranks. He's at Mizzou now. That's his game. He's going to need the ball in his hands a lot. He was a guy that shot like 30 times a game in high school, and he doesn't play a whole lot of defense. And Mark Mitchell's fine on the defensive side of the ball, but there are some questions as to like how he would fit with the current roster for Mizzou. They also got Bryson Tiller from Kansas, who basically just plays the Mark Mitchell role, where he's going to kind of face up and drive to the basket. So it's a little bit more tricky in terms of the fit. The talent is such that you have to do it, and you figure out how it works with your roster later. But I do think it's a little trickier for Mizzou than it is for SLU.
I agree with that. And honestly, I think they may not bring back Mitchell. I mean, do you really want to do it for 1 year compared to what you got with this roster? See, I don't know that they will. I think they'll look at it. I'm not so much worried about that because I think they could figure that out. I just think what BK is saying is, with the ball needing to go to Jason Crow's hands, do I really want to pull it out of his hands to give it to Mark Mitchell? My answer would probably be no, right? I would lean more towards Jason Crow and stick with him. Mark Mitchell did what we needed to at Mizzou, right? You know what? Thanks, man. I would say it's time for us to just move on and go our separate ways. Avila, I agree, is different. And, I think he is the guy that kind of runs that shirt system.
There's no pushback on that one.
You can kind of just go back to what you were doing, and he's brought in some good talent from the offseason. Like, that one makes sense. Mitchell is much more complicated for me. I would say if you're Missouri, you let him walk, and I would stick with what you have. Now, I don't know if they'll do that or not, but that's personally what I would do. In Illinois, I don't think he's going to come back, but Boswell would be eligible for this as well. Doing more research into it, I think he could potentially come back, and he would make sense because they're going to look to just bring a guard onto the bench if he were to return. So even in that one, I think would be different from the Missouri one.
We got this from the 573. Would Mizzou have to cut a player in order to make room on the roster? This is something we were talking about in the press box yesterday.
We're going to make buyouts a thing.
Technically, Mizzou would.
Jeez.
In reality, I don't think they can enforce the roster restrictions.
Yeah.
We just need to put buyouts. You need trade deadlines. Make this a professional sports league.
There are buyouts. Like, buyouts are already a thing.
Well, then let's add on to it. Does it hurt the cap when you do a buyout to these teams?
Well, there's not a cap yet because that's what they were trying to get through Congress. And Congress punted on it and said, we're going on break.
Hey, they needed a break, all right? They deserve a summer break.
Vacation time.
So, to answer the question directly, like, as the rules are stated today, yes, they would have to cut somebody in order to bring Mark Mitchell back. I think they made a mistake in not leaving that roster spot open and taking the extra player who's almost certainly not going to see the court for Mizzou this year, but whatever. If you want me to theorize on why they took that player, it's because they knew this is not going to matter. They're not going to be able to enforce this, and in a worst-case scenario, we're just going to go ahead and pay Mark Mitchell the extra $30,000 and not put him on scholarship, right? Like, we don't technically have to have him on a scholarship spot on our roster. He can be a walk-on. He just happens to be making $6 million as a walk-on this year. So I think there will be workarounds. I'm not overly worried about it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think if I'm Missouri, I'd challenge the NCAA on the roster.
Everybody else does.
I'd say that as an Illinois. I'd say that as a SLU fan. I'd say, all right. I mean, like, let's be honest about what the NCAA is. Oh, okay, tough guy. Like, that's all. I can't even believe they suspended that Tennessee linebacker 2 games. I don't think that's going to hold up, by the way. I think Tennessee's going to get that changed. So I'm with you. I wouldn't worry about the roster spot. I think Missouri can figure that out easily.
I think this is going to come down to, does Missouri want to bring him back? I think they do. Does Missouri have the money to bring him back? I think they do. And then third, and most importantly, does Mark Mitchell want to come back to Mizzou, or does he want to test the market elsewhere and get more money from a different team?
I think he's going to want to do that.
And I think there's a real chance that another team out there says, you know what, we're going all in. Like Kentucky. Apparently they have interest in him. LSU, they're going to have interest in him. There are teams that, especially teams that have a new coach, where they are now playing like the second wave of free agency, basically. And they just say, hey, we've got a bunch of money that has been left over because we couldn't get guys in the portal at the time. Do you want to come here? And then it's going to have to be another court case where Mark Mitchell decides, I'm going to go elsewhere and I'm going to go make my money. And God bless him if he does. If you can make $6+ million to play an extra year in college basketball, and you were basically just told by the NBA, hey, we don't view you as a legit NBA player right now, go do it, Mark Mitchell. Yeah. Good for you, man. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, are the Blues going to have to make a choice on their wingers sooner rather than later? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the SportsCenter update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals fell to the Phillies last night 6-5. Game 2 of that 3-game set is tonight, 6:45 first pitch. Andre Palante will be on the mound for St. Louis. In NFL news, Minnesota Vikings have named Kyler Murray their starting quarterback for Week 1. The SportsCenter update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin Heating and Air Conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. It was exciting earlier today, Alex, to go over to the Daily Face-Off and see they wrote about the Blues system. Mm-hmm. In said system, they had Tynan Lawrence as the number 1 prospect in the organization right now. They also had a whole boatload of forwards as top 10 guys. Justin Carbonneau was at 2. They had Maddox,
Desjardins, which should be Ethan Belchez.
At number 4, Otto Stenberg at number 5. Another center that they got in the Washington Capitals trade, Milton.
Gastrin. I don't know. It's a Swedish name.
Milton at number 6.
Big M.
They also have Dmitry
Buchelnikov. I know that one. He's
at
Russian.
number 9. That's like more than half of your top 9.
You didn't even mention a few others, too, that he didn't have on that. You got another kid in the KHL right now, that Matvei Korotki. You got a couple of other guys, Dylan Peterson, Kaskamaki in the minors. Like, there's
Yeko.
Yeah, Dean, Pekarchik. Like, they're stacked with wingers specifically, because really the only ones that you mentioned that are centers are Tynan Lawrence, Desjardins, and that Milton Gastrin. Everybody else that you just mentioned are all wingers in your system.
Are they getting close to decision time?
Yeah, you're probably a year, maybe 2 away from that, because a lot of those guys just aren't there yet. Like those Russian players, you're probably still 2 years away from talking about them. Tynan Lawrence, I'd say you're probably 2 years. Same with Maddox Desjardins, 2 to 3 years. But, like, if you look at this roster just for this upcoming season, you're kind of at decision time. By the end of this season going into next year, you're going to have to start making some choices, because you've got right now, like, go through this real quick with me, because on their roster, they've got 15 forwards that are one-way contracts that would need to go through waivers. And they're only going to carry 14. You've got your centers in Thomas, McTavish, and Dvorsky. You've got Holloway, Neighbors, Snuggerud, McMichael, Buchnevich. Those are the locks, in my opinion, for a top 9 winger. Then you've got Johnston, Finley, Walker, Toropchenko. Those are your fourth-line players. Then you've got Suter, Berger, and Dubé, who are kind of out there in they're in the fog of how they fit into all of this. And then you've got Carbonneau and Stenberg, who are the prospects that don't need waivers, but you imagine they're a part of your top 9. So of those 15 forwards that need waivers, add in the other 2, that's 17 players on your roster, and only 3 of them are centers. Or 4 of them, really, I guess, if you want to put Finley into that. So, yeah, like, you have to make some decisions. Now, the benefit of the Blues now is 2 of those guys you just put in the minors and you say, we don't need to worry about it right now, Carbonneau and Stenberg. But I think by the middle of this upcoming season, going into next offseason, you're going to have to make some decisions, because Carbonneau, I would imagine they want to get up here. Stenberg the same. Some more of those minor league guys are going to be pushing for fourth-line roles, and then you're going to start bringing over these Russians and these prospects that you've drafted in. So I think you're going to have to pluck, like, 3 of those guys from the roster that I just mentioned and say, all right, time to be done with them. Now we're transitioning into this next group.
How far do you think Tynan Lawrence is?
I'd say 2 years. I think he plays college this year, maybe next year as well. And then the following year, you're probably talking about him.
Probably 2 to 3 would be my guess.
Yeah, because it's just the center position. You're going to have to see how it translates. Typically for those guys, like 2 years of college is enough for them to kind of get that development process. But I don't know if he's a necessity to get over to the NHL right away. But I think that also comes into play of the development, because the factor into all of this that I find fascinating is, are we sure McTavish and Dvorsky are going to be centers long term?
Yeah.
That's what I have circled.
Yeah. I think McTavish will. I think they're going to want that size down the middle, but there's a real chance he becomes a winger for you.
And the reason that I ask that is because Lawrence is a center. Like, that's his future. There's no doubt about it. And maybe it's not a top 6 center, but that guy is fitting in the middle of the ice, probably as a second or a third line center. He's part of your plans in the future. So lock him in there. That means one of McTavish or Dvorsky probably is not a center for you long term. Either they are a trade chip or they become somebody that flips over to the winger. And they add their name to this list that I'm about to bring up. Booch, Holloway, Snuggie, McMichael, Neighbors, Carbonneau, Stenberg. That's too many names. That's a good problem to have. As we talked about earlier today with Derrick, it's better to have too many NHL caliber players than not enough. That is, again, a good problem to have. It is still a problem. It is still something that they're going to have to sort through over the coming year or two. And I think the guys that I would circle, nobody's going to want to hear this, but I think it's true, Jake Neighbors, Otto Stenberg. Those would be the two that I would circle and say, they're the ones that are kind of on the clock right now. There's not a whole lot you can do with Pavel Buchnevich. They've told you how they feel about Dylan Holloway. That guy's going to be here for the long term. They just gave him money. They've told you how they feel about Snuggerud. The guy plays top line minutes every single night. Based upon their actions, they're going to keep him here. They just traded for McMichael and gave him a long-term extension. He's going to be here. Carbonneau, we'll see. But I think he's going to be here long term, which means I just named 5 guys that are wingers for you. There's one spot remaining in the top 9.
Yeah.
You either are going to decide one of Stenberg or Neighbors are fourth-line players for you for the future. I think that's pretty unlikely long term. I think they have more value as trade assets than they would as a fourth-liner. Or you move on from one of them.
Yeah, Neighbors is the one that I just, from everything I've heard and talked with people in the organization, I don't think they view that guy as a trade chip. I think they view him more as a core piece. Stenberg,
I think so too, but does that change with McTavish here, who plays a similar kind of a style, especially if they decide that McTavish is somebody who needs to bump to the wing?
I don't think the leash on McTavish is short, though. Like, McTavish is the center because they're not going to rush Tynan Lawrence to the NHL. Like, I think you're talking 3 years, which you're 3 years into McTavish. You'll have an answer at that point, but you're also going to have an answer for Dvorsky. I'd point more to Dvorsky and say, does he become a trade chip or does he become a winger for the team long term because of his shot if Tynan Lawrence pushes him out?
That makes sense.
I think Stenberg's the one that becomes the casualty just because is there more interest in him via trade versus the Blues if they don't find him fitting into the top 9? I think they'd be perfectly content making him a fourth-line player. He's never going to cost you a lot because he's not going to push money out the door.
I'm with you there because I wonder if they would view him in the Barbie role, where he comes up at first as a fourth liner, and because you're going to deal with injuries,
up and down.
Yeah, and then he can move up in the lineup if he gets hurt or somebody gets hurt.
That list that we went through, I kind of like bolded individual players, saying like they're probably going to work their way out over the next 2 years. Walker, Toropchenko, Suter, Berggren, Dubé. All of those guys, I think, are probably going to be in 2 years off of this roster.
Sure.
So now I just opened up at least 3 mandatory spots to put into your fourth line. And I think a fourth line of having Stenberg be on that and be the centerpiece with the Jack Finley is probably what they want because he's not going to cost you too much. Carbonneau pushes into that one. Dvorsky's the one that I think I'm going to really be circling moving forward because I think they value the size of McTavish. You need size in the NHL to have success, and down the middle is very important if you can get him there. Don't get me wrong. He's not free from trying to think of the right word. He's not free from the negatives of how he plays. Like, if he struggles, you're going to be talking about, like, is this guy just a winger for you long term? But because Dvorsky is kind of viewed as that third-line center, and if Tynan Lawrence has got more of an upside, I wonder if Dvorsky becomes, because what's everything that around people around the NHL want? Centers, especially if they're not expensive. So Dvorsky's the one that I'll be fascinated to see how he kind of fits into the timeline moving forward with this group.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Junk Drawers next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys have missed anything from today's show so far, check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app, free to download, super easy to use. It's sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Alex, I've got a question for you.
All right, I've got an answer, Brandon.
So yesterday, post-game, we were talking with Hunter Dobbins, and he was talking about how it was a rough outing for him, didn't have his feel for his stuff, and then eventually he comes out and says, listen, it was this humidity, I'm not used to it.
Did you stand in the back of the crowd and go, no?
And all I could think about is, remember when Sonny Gray said, man, it's just wet. Everything's wet.
I agree with him.
And a lot of people gave Sonny Gray crap at the time. And then I heard it from Dobbins, and he then followed up that statement by saying he's going to talk to the other pitchers on the staff to see how they deal with it, if they've got any tips or tricks to it.
Don't wear layers.
And he said he's going to talk to guys that have pitched here for a long time to see what they did. I'm guessing he's going to reach out to Waino to find out, hey, how the bleep do you pitch in mid-August in this crap? Can you imagine being a pitcher?
No.
He's coming from Boston where, yeah, they've got some humidity, but let's be real.
No.
It ain't like this.
It's not this.
And you've got to figure out once every fifth day how to pitch in that freaking humidity that existed there yesterday.
I issued my public apology, 2 weeks ago, for how disgusting it was outside. I don't know how anybody can do this, to be out in this for that long, and especially them that's wearing, those thicker jerseys and wearing
and
stuff underneath them.
A slippery baseball.
Yes, and all you can do is just toss the bag around and hope that helps a little bit. I feel for them there, and nobody else does, I know, because they're making millions of dollars, and who cares? But my God, that has to be miserable. I want to spend as little time as possible outside when it's like this. Imagine having to go out there, every 10 minutes and deal with that heat. Hell no.
I went on my run on Sunday and thought I was going to pass out when I got home.
We've been building
Genuinely.
this patio, and outside work is a terrible decision.
It felt as though I had lost 10 pounds while I was outside.
Oh, well,
and I
good for
think
you,
I
man.
lost pretty close to 5.
A lot of people try that, though, when they're
just
doing
water weight. Like, not a healthy way, just I need to put as much water back into my body as possible. Somebody on the text line said, YouTube chat, Scorsy says, guys, it didn't bother the Phillies pitcher yesterday. Maybe not. He did, however, walk 3 over 5 1/3.
I think that's just him.
Now, he was much better than what Hunter Dobbins was in that regard, but he did still walk a few guys over the course of the game as well. It apparently impacted Caleb Ferguson, who came in and immediately had 0 command yesterday.
Yeah, I've been trying, once you start to sweat, try and grip anything and try and hold on to it. It's nearly impossible.
Somebody said, the Deegan from Jeffco, I was at the game last night. Dobbins was working the crap out of the rosin bag. Sadly, it didn't seem to help.
Yeah.
They should, that should be a rule that we give the teams out. They should get a towel back there.
They should get Spider Tech.
Whoa.
When it's at least 90 degrees and you've got a humidity that approaches a certain
level. We can't
level.
hit now already, BK.
Just honestly, for the safety of the batters, they should be allowed. I had one other take that I wanted to get off here.
If this isn't what I'm thinking, I agree.
Is this what the segment is? Just BK's takes?
Yeah, I've got a lot of that I want to get off my chest, too. That might be another day.
Did you see the box score last night, Alex?
I did.
Have you looked at it at all?
Yeah, and I saw your tweet, so I know what you're referencing.
You know how many earned runs there were against Hunter Dobbins yesterday? Earned runs.
I'd have to go back and look at it. Earned runs, I'd say, it was
1 earned, 3 runs allowed, though.
It's a hell of an outing for Hunter Dobbins.
Not too shabby. His ERA, because of that, is at a nice 3.4 on the season.
Keep him in the rotation.
No doubt about it. It shouldn't have been only 1 earned run.
What are you
yesterday.
complaining about here, Brandon?
Hunter Dobbins had a throwing error, which led to 2 runs in the second inning being unearned. But the throwing error was on him. It was not on a first baseman. It was not on a third baseman. It was not on an outfielder. The man who created the opportunity for that runner to continue and ultimately to score was Hunter Dobbins himself. If you, the pitcher, have an error in an inning and that run goes on to score, I believe that should be an earned run on the pitcher because the run is on you, not on somebody else. Again, if somebody else has the error in the inning, if Mason Wynn overthrows the first baseman, that shouldn't be an earned run. That is different to me than if the pitcher is the one who throws the ball 4 feet over Alec Burleson's head, it goes into the outfield, the ball kicks around, and they ultimately score the run.
I agree.
I think this is a rule that should be changed in Major League Baseball.
You won't hear any argument from here, Brandon. I think when you create errors like that, those are your fault. It should not be on the team. It should be on the fact that you didn't, just like, and I know this one's not the same because Matthew Lubertor suffered all of those earned runs on that Saturday, but not covering the base on that? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's like an error.
It's an error.
Yeah.
When you screw up, it's an error, and you should suffer from those
agree.
consequences.
I agree with you, BK. I've never understood that rule.
From Mailman Ken, the other team didn't earn the runs. Disagree, sir. They earned it by forcing the throw.
See?
They ran to first base. The pitcher couldn't make the throw. They earned it. And frankly, I'm just trying to say that this is something that should count against the pitcher.
Yeah.
It's less about
They
the
didn't earn
other
it.
team
The player
and more
screwed
about
up, but
the
I see where you're
pitcher
getting
who
at.
couldn't make the play, and that's on him.
You
If
can't throw to
you
first base.
are,
Think that hurt his war?
Should his ERA too.
if you're somebody said this is stupid.
This is
ERA
stupid.
is supposed to tell you about runs attributable to the pitcher's pitching, not his fielding. It is a pitching stat.
You're an idiot, Brandon.
This is the pitcher who should contribute toward his own defense.
Yeah.
He didn't in this area, and therefore it should be an earned run. I will stand my ground on
disappoint
this
me,
area.
text line.
Yeah, you should
Coming
be
up
better.
in 15 minutes, we'll dive into some NFL quick hitters. But next, how should the Cardinals handle their playing time at third base down the stretch? We'll get into that next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So how should the Cardinals handle playing time at third base down the stretch? Alex, it's something we were discussing a bit yesterday.
Is this Nolan Gorman talk again?
Hold on one sec. And as we got into it, one of the considerations was what they were doing with the lineup yesterday. And that's because they decided to put Cesar Prieto at third base for the second time in the last 4 days. He's getting a bit of a run here. Now, I wonder if that's related to Ramon Urias. You asked about Nolan Gorman. I would say it's somebody different. Ramon Urias is making his way through the minor leagues right now. He had a couple of homers in his game the other day. I think the plan is for him to play like 7 innings in the field. I want to say that's today, and then he still needs to get a full game in the field over the next few days as well. But my sense is we could see him back up with the big league club. What do you think, T-Bone? As soon as like this weekend, maybe?
Yeah, when they go to Chicago, I think that's probably about when you're looking at it.
So you could see Ramon Urias here within, the next 3 to 5 games. So it's entirely possible that he's up and Cesar Prieto goes back down. How would you like them to schedule this thing out, though, Alex? Who would you be prioritizing? Because you've got, as options at third base, Jose Fermin, Brian Torres, Blaze Jordan, Cesar Prieto, eventually Ramon Urias, and you brought him up, yes, Nolan Gorman as well, who's been hitting for some power down at AAA.
So I would take Nolan Gorman, Cesar Prieto, and Brian Torres out of the equation. Okay. I don't need to see those guys at third base. I don't think they play into the plans moving forward. I think Ramon Urias would be somebody I'd be curious about when he gets healthier because we saw it early on. But he's kind of somebody that, correct me if I'm wrong here, really was only going into the lineup against certain sides of pitchers, correct?
Yeah.
Where he was hitting against lefties.
He would start against lefties because I think Gorman was starting against righties.
So I think I'd be playing a lot of Jose Fermin and Blaze Jordan moving forward. Like, I just don't need to see Cesar Prieto. I know he was hitting 300 in the minors when they sent him back down. The guy has had plenty of opportunities and has struggled this year for the Cardinals. I don't think I need to see it with him.
Does not have a walk or a hit.
Why do I need to see what he has?
He's due.
Yeah, no, I don't need to see what he has after hitting 300 in the minors. You're a 4A player, and I'm A-okay with that. I would prioritize keeping Blaze at that position, and I would occasionally play Fermin because Fermin seems like he's just Mr. Utility for this team, just like what Brendan Donovan was. Play him anywhere. The bat's going to come into the lineup and continue and help out. I would prioritize more Blaze Jordan. And then Ramon Urias is healthy? Sure, put him out there. I think Blaze is the more important player here.
Yeah, I would just focus on playing Blaze Jordan. And look, I get it. He's very splitty. He's not good against right-handed pitching. He's been great against lefties. I'd say that's just small sample size right now, and that may end up being where he's at. But I would want to know that by the end of the year and feel like I gave him a bigger sample size to know, because to me, he's the only guy in the organization that I look at and go, this guy has an outside shot to prove he can be an everyday third baseman for us. Odds are you're probably going to have to make that improvement at some point externally, but I would say I want to see it from him because I think his profile is interesting, right? He hits the ball decently hard. He doesn't strike out a ton. Now, he doesn't draw walks, but he doesn't strike out, and he puts the ball in play, which is valuable. I think you know what Ramon Urias is, right? I mean, he's established what he is as a big leaguer. I'm okay if he comes in as like a defensive replacement late in games so you can kind of force Blaze to earn it defensively, but I think he's been fine defensively over there in the hot corner. I don't think there is a need to get Ramon Urias playing time. You know what he is. You don't need to figure out anything more if you want to pick up that option or not this offseason. I don't need to see any more of Cesar Prieto. He just doesn't do it for me. If you want to keep him around somehow on the roster, we can have that conversation. I don't know how you do that, but the only guy for me is Blaze. Blaze is the one guy that I would say I do not want to pull playing time from him. I want him to play every day at third base. Jose Fermin can kind of rotate around as a utility man to get guys days off to get his playing time. Blaze is the guy I would focus on at third base.
This is one I struggle with. I'm not as definitive on that. Because here's why I say that. Is there any real urgency to find out what Blaze Jordan is?
No, but I think it's valuable to get him playing time now.
And I don't think there's any urgency to find out with anybody in this organization because you're waiting on Jesus Baez right now.
There might be with Urias. And the reason why is because you have an option on him for this offseason where you kind of have to decide, all right, what's the plan here? Because for the Cardinals this year, he had his moments, but overall, the numbers are not very good. He hit 158 for them with an OPS below 600. Now, was that related to the elbow issue that ultimately wound up with him missing the vast majority of the season? Maybe. And maybe he comes back and he looks really good and you decide, you know what, it makes sense for us to bring him back. He'll be 33, but he's a right-handed bat. We can platoon him at third base. We can make this thing work that way. I think there's an argument to be made that there's urgency with him. I would say the same thing is not true of Blaze Jordan because he's going to be on the roster no matter what next year. And next year is going to be another season in which you can find a lot of information out about him. I would say Cesar Prieto, while I'm not particularly interested in him, and I don't think he's going to be a long-term answer, this is probably the time where you have to find out. And against right-handed pitchers, who else do you have that profiles to be that guy? Like it might be a discussion of Prieto versus Gorman right now on who you're platooning at third base for the time being. Because it doesn't seem as though Blaze Jordan's great against righties. Jose Fermin hasn't been great against righties. You're not going to probably have Brian Torres start there most days. He's not getting most of his opportunities in the infield anymore. Most of his starts are coming in the outfield. So I think Cesar Prieto and Gorman are the two guys that you would potentially use as a third base option against right-handed pitchers right now. So I'm not as definitive as you guys, but I think the players that you're probably going to see most of down the stretch are Prieto and Urias, I suppose.
Yeah, see, I don't find a need to play Urias. And the reason I say that is I know what this guy is as a big leaguer, right? I know he didn't do it in your organization. This guy's played 566 career games and has taken 1,900 plate appearances in his big league career. Sure, small sample size for him this year, and he didn't hit. He's never really hit in his big league career. So
against lefties.
I don't find. This is the other thing. Like, if you're going to say Blaze is good against lefties, well, that just might be Blaze's role next year. So, there we are again, where I would just say I don't find the need to figure it out with Urias.
And I'm just going off of I got a 23-year-old versus a 32-year-old. I'd rather give the more playing time to the 23-year-old. I know what the 32-year-old is. And
for Blaze, yes, I get it. He's not been good against right-handed pitching this year. He's got a 565 OPS compared to 813 against lefties. We're talking 96 plate appearances. I've seen this team give Gorman 1,000 plate appearances to try and figure out who he is. I would just rather in the next month and a half, odds are, he may be a split guy, right, where he's better off against lefties. I would just play him, right? And sure, it's not a urgent decision. I just think it's more valuable for him to be getting those at-bats compared to, well, let's figure out what Prieto is or let's figure out Ramon Urias.
Here's the thing. Even if I agreed with you, it seems pretty clear based upon their actions that the Cardinals don't. Otherwise, why is Ramon Urias still here? What's the point of going through all of this with Ramon Urias to bring him back to the Major League roster if they're not going to utilize him? Right? I mean, if this guy is 32 years old, they don't have plans for him here and now or in the future, then they should have just DFA'd him. They could have made the roster decision instead of sending down or DFAing Tink Hence. They could have just DFA'd Ramon Urias. It would have been an easy move. He's 32. He has no future here. They do with him the exact same way that they just did with Velasquez, where they say, you know what? He's not a future here. We see a guy on waivers that we're more interested in. He's younger, cost-controlled, a little more upside. We think maybe he can be a part of this thing for 2027 as well. Let's go ahead and get him the opportunity. It seems pretty clear to me that they view Ramon Urias, for right or wrong, as a guy that has more of a future as a third baseman for the Cardinals than either Cesar Prieto or Brian Torres or maybe even Blaze Jordan. Maybe the Cardinals are telling us with their actions once again. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but tell me if you guys disagree with this. They seem to be telling us with their actions again that they're not overly positive that Blaze Jordan is their future third baseman.
Oh, I agree with that one.
And I'm talking as soon as next year. Blaze Jordan has made 2 starts at third base in the last week.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I think Blaze just might be a bench bat for them, pinch hitter in that role. That seems to be how they view him.
Just spitballing here to your question on Urias, because I think it's fair. One, I think it'd be a bad look to DFA a guy that's injured.
Why?
I think that's just
rebuild.
I think that's a bad look as an organization. But two, this is the one that I think is potentially more likely. Is okay. So you bring him back here. He starts playing. Let's say this weekend. You get him 10, 15 games. you could then put him on waivers and see if someone takes his money when you get to that September waiver deadline that we see all the time, where the Angels put like half their team on it one year. That might be what they do. They did that with Sean Armstrong after they acquired him. They tried it. They said, not worth paying that money. Let's see if somebody else will take
but
it.
At that
Somebody
point,
claimed
why
them.
use the next week to do that?
Just to showcase him, so then people seem healthy. Maybe people pick up that whatever's remaining on his salary. It's not a lot. That's why I don't know if it's a thing. It's just spitballing here. But I wonder if that would be what they're also thinking as well. And then when you put him on waivers, say it's $500,000 he's making at the end of the year still. Maybe somebody claims him, then you don't have to pay that $500,000.
They've told us that they don't care about that right now. They just got rid of their highest paid player. They just took on the extra money for Caleb Ferguson. I don't think that's a big part of what they're factoring in. They didn't retain any money at the trade deadline this year. I think they're all about, getting the best returns for things and trying to make their roster the best for the future, regardless of a $500,000 contract that remains for the rest of the year. I would be pretty surprised if that's what's driving this decision. I think they view Ramon Urias as a guy that's probably going to be back here next year. I think the Cardinals view him as the expectation is that team option, they're picking that up.
See, I was just going to say, let me ask you this. If he were to be healthy this season, and let's say he was just average for you, do you think they wouldn't have put him in trade conversations?
Sure, but I also think that there's a real chance. I think it's even likely at this point. I think they're going to pick up that $4 million option on Ramon Urias.
I think Ramon Urias was signed the same reason that Dustin May was signed. I think it was to get through this season and potentially be a trade chip for them.
See, I think it was partially to get through this season, but I also don't believe they thought they had a third baseman that could be a right-handed hitter for them, that could play well defensively, and they wanted that to complement what they expected Nolan Gorman to be, where this guy comes in, he's good defensively, he can give Nolan Gorman a day off, and against left-handed pitching, he's starting for us every time that we're going up against a lefty. And I still think they're going to view that role as being for him next year. Yeah, and more so than Blaze Jordan. Now, we can disagree with that. And if you guys disagree with it, it is fair to be critical of them for making that kind of a decision, especially in the midst of whatever this is, the rebuild, retool, refresh, reset, whatever. But that's my read on the situation right now.
I don't disagree with you. I think that's probably what they're trying. What I don't understand is that's clearly just a stopgap no matter what, right? I
don't think they have a better alternative right now.
They have no answer at that spot.
This is why
I think Jesus Baez is the next answer for them at third base.
But this is why I'm saying, even if your Urias comes back and has a good, let's just call it year and 2 months, right? Let's say he's good next year. And when I mean good, I'm probably talking league average hitter. You're not extending that guy, I don't think.
No, but he gives you a year.
Sure, but why not try that with Blaze? See if I can get a year, and that's the case. If Blaze is good,
try it with someone else.
Blaze might be the guy that just becomes the answer at third base. But they clearly are telling us they just don't believe in his defense. I've not seen anything from him defensively. Now his range is limited. I would add Wynn can make up for that. I mean, we've seen him make up for it at his spot defensively. I would just bet on Blaze Jordan's profile right now, and maybe I'll be proven wrong. And if I'm proven wrong, guess what? I'll turn to Jesus Baez, like you're saying, or I'll turn to the market. I don't get the need of playing in a rebuild a 32-year-old that I already know what he is.
I agree.
That just doesn't seem to make much sense to me. That's the part that I don't fully understand.
Yeah.
Prieto, I could get it, right? You're trying to figure out if he belongs on the 40-man lefty. Though I think I know what he is, and they seem to always need more numbers than we do from the outside. And sometimes they've been proven right. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm looking at Victor Scott where they've been proven wrong. I get it. That one I get. The 32-year-old in a rebuild just doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, to me, it's one of the more confounding decisions of the year. But again, I go back to, and I know what you're saying, T-Bone, about not DFAing him while he's injured. It wouldn't be the first time. They decided to take, what's his face? The lefty, Zach Thompson. He was removed from the roster.
Sure, that was in the offseason, though, and he wasn't rehabbing.
I think it does something if you sign a guy, he's injured, and then you just cut him loose.
$1 million.
Well, I know, but
every year in Major League Baseball, there are dozens of players that have this exact situation.
I know, but some organizations
where the roster spot is more valuable than that player. It is a cold-blooded game, man. And Ramon Urias is not the kind of guy that you look at and say, we've got to do right by him.
No, I don't think it's do right by him. I just think it's the side of it of we signed a free agent, and just to cut a guy in the middle of an injury is not the best looking thing if we're ever trying to attract free agents.
I don't think that it changes anything. Ramon Urias is the kind of guy who signed for $1 million. He signed because he had a spot. That's why he signed with you. And if you get the next guy that's in that spot, they will sign with you because you have a spot. And then if they perform, they'll have the opportunity and they'll keep playing every day. If they get hurt and they get DFA'd, that's part of the game, man. Like, this happens to pitchers all the time, where they get hurt, they're on the IL, and guess what? They're DFA'd. And it's just the way that the game goes. I don't think that's why he's going through their system right now. I think he's going through their system. This is, again, my read. I could be wrong on this, but my personal opinion on the matter is that they're sending him through their system to get him back up to the big league level, and he's going to start regularly. I think he's going to get consistent playing time, especially every time that they see a lefty at third base down the stretch. And I will be fascinated to see what the reaction is to that if and when it takes place. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. NFL Quick Hitters next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, and Electricity. They can do whatever you need at your home, but specifically for that HVAC system, if you've got an older unit that you're hoping that just gets you through the summertime, if you've got one that you're thinking, boy, before the winter hits, I'm going to have to make sure that the furnace is good to go, that's where Classic Air Care comes into play. I'm a part of something that they have called the maintenance agreement, to where twice a year, spring and fall, they come out, clean my HVAC system and furnace, fine-tune it, make sure everything's good to go so that I can get through the upcoming season, whatever that might be. But the best part is, if I have issues pop up in that window, I call them, they get somebody out there within 24 hours, and I get priority scheduling thanks to my time with Classic Air Care. But maybe you're a new customer and you're just looking for somebody to take care of your older system. That's where Classic Air Care can help you out as well. You can schedule online, and when you do so, also check out their Feel the Love program. They're partnering with Lennox for you to nominate a local hero, military vet, team teacher, first responder, or someone who's always putting others in the community first. Nominate them, and they get a chance to win a free heating and cooling system at no cost. All of it at Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. Cardinals fell to the Phillies last night 6-5. Game 2 of their 3-game set against Philadelphia is tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch. Andre Palante will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You guys see the big news in the NFL today?
Yeah, big news, big news.
Anthony Richardson starting for the Colts preseason
Daniel
week 1.
Jones is making movements out there.
Oh, is that not it?
Kyler Murray has officially been named the starting quarterback for the Vikings over J.J. McCarthy.
Oh, my gosh, are you kidding me? I never would have
Shocker.
thought that was going to happen this year.
Well, I would imagine Adam Schefter was sure surprised when he saw the news, because yesterday he went on with Pat McAfee and said there's really no distance between the two. It's too close to call
That
right
was the
now.
Vikings paying him under the table, like, hey, make it look good for J.J. McCarthy.
Why did we have to pretend that this was a competition?
Because Adam Schefter said it, so it must be true.
I will never understand, but whatever. Let's start out with this. Do you think that Kyler Murray is going to be the next quarterback to go through this former top 5 overall selection, or at least first-round pick, rehabilitation, where he gets to a new team and we see a reinvigorated version of the player that we had seen previously? We saw it with Baker. He goes to Tampa, looks like a different dude. We saw this with Daniel Jones, goes to the Colts, looks like a different dude. Now, he got hurt, but for the first half of the season, he was awesome. And we saw with Sam Darnold, who went to the Seahawks and won the Super Bowl with them. So this has become kind of a new way of quarterbacks to develop over the years. Do you think Kyler's the next one to do so?
Yeah, I think there's a chance for it. I don't trust it, and I wouldn't buy into it, but I do think there's something to the fact of when you get cut or moved off of the team that invested so much into you, there's a realization of, oh man, I really slacked there and I need to turn it around. And so you do have that kind of like second coming wherever you may end up. And it's the perfect roster for a quarterback to go to because of all of the weapons that you have. I think he's going to be fine. I don't think it's going to look like all of a sudden the guy is an MVP candidate. I don't think we're all going to be looking at it and be like, oh man, he's one of the best in the NFC. I don't even know if they're a playoff team with Kyler Murray. But I think he's going to be better than what he has been in the narrative of what he has been in Arizona. So it's going to be an improvement, but it's not going to be anything that gets you super excited.
Yeah, I'm torn on this because, I don't trust Kyler. I think Kyler probably has done a lot of caughting when he shouldn't have. I don't think he's necessarily been prepared for football games, and I think too many times he bails on the play instead of letting it develop. That being said, I think O'Connell's one of the best coaches in the NFL. And if anybody's going to get the best out of him, I think it might be him. So I'm kind of with Alex. I think this is going to go fine. I wouldn't bet on them being a playoff team. I think he will be fine. I don't think he's going to be in the MVP conversation. We'll look back on it and go, oh, that's not bad. And then I wonder if we see someone overpay him on the market and regret to live that decision.
I think they might win the division.
Over your Packers?
Well, the Packers, I think, might finish last in the division, unfortunately, this year. But Kyler Murray throwing to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jawan Jennings, TJ Hawkinson. It sounds pretty damn good. And at a certain point, I agree with you, T-Bone. I think Kevin O'Connell's a really good head coach. We don't have a whole lot of evidence of that in recent years. I think he's very good. I think he will get the most out of the quarterback that you put on the field. Sean McVay has shown me that consistently. Kyle Shanahan has shown me that consistently with different quarterbacks. There does come a point in time where if you don't show me that, then I can no longer claim that about you. So if he can't get the most out of Kyler Murray this year, I will have some questions on, did we overestimate what Kevin O'Connell is? Was he just kind of a flash in the pan? Was it only a few years and he had this to bring to the table? This was his playbook, and that was it. There were no second, third, or fourth options for him. And I think Kyler is talented enough to where it should open up more of what he wants to do within the playbook. And now you not only have Jefferson and Addison, but you added in Jawan Jennings, who is an awesome third down option for you as well. This team should be pretty damn good, man. I'm excited to see what the Minnesota Vikings look like this season as a follow-up to this. Saw Ben Solak tweet this out. If you're a team with an aging starter at quarterback, the Steelers, the Rams, the Jets, etc., how much would you offer in a trade right now to J.J. McCarthy? Now, before you say what I think you're about to say, the Rams should not be included in that list. They just drafted a guy in the first round. Trading for another one would be lunacy.
It was lunacy to take the first one, but whatever.
If you are a different team, though, with an aging quarterback or a quarterback that you're not sure about, would you trade for J.J. McCarthy? And if so, what would you give up, Alex?
I wouldn't trade for him. I think I would rather take my shot at the draft and draft somebody than to trade for J.J. McCarthy. I don't think he's a winning quarterback, and so I'm not going to trade anything for him. If he doesn't work out in Minnesota, I'll wait until he's released, and I'll take that chance.
I'd give up like a fourth or a fifth for him. If I'm Pittsburgh, what the hell they got behind Aaron Rodgers?
Nothing. We got
Aaron Rodgers. Might be able to beat Aaron Rodgers out of the job. That guy can't move anymore. If I'm Pittsburgh, I think it would make some sense. I mean, there were flashes from McCarthy last year. Like, there was a drive or two that you could look at and go, wow, I could see why Minnesota dreamed on him and picked him with the 10th overall pick. I don't think he would work out, to your point, because I couldn't understand why he was first-round pick buzz when he came out of the draft. When I go, everything around Michigan was why they won, not J.J. McCarthy.
He can hand the ball off.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth a shot if you're one of these teams, just like it's probably worth a shot of like Anthony Richardson, for example. But I would be willing to give up like a fifth-round pick for him.
I'd rather trade for Anthony Richardson than J.J. McCarthy.
Hey, man.
BK heard that.
We're on the same page, brother.
Hell yeah, brother.
You know a team that I would keep an eye on? What's going on with the Bucks? What's going on down there?
Well, they got a quarterback, man.
I'll tell you what I think the Bucks should do. Quit being stupid and sign your franchise quarterback.
I agree. But if they're not going to do that, that's the starting point here. I don't know. That would be an interesting one to me.
Man, what a 180 from quarterbacks with Baker Mayfield to J.J. McCarthy.
If you're the Cardinals, don't you try it?
No, you got to keep Jacoby. It's Jacoby there, right? You got to keep him so you can get the first overall pick.
Say, if I'm the Cardinals, I'd start him so I can get the number 1 overall pick.
I'm trying to lose.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Throw some assets at it. If you can get him for a 5th-round pick right now, I'd probably do that. If I'm the Jets, absolutely. If I'm the Steelers, as you mentioned, T-Bone, they've got Rodgers for this year, and then what? They have no other answers at the quarterback position long term. And another team that I'll throw into the mix is the Browns. They have 100 different guys. Why not throw in another?
Oh, man, they got an interesting quarterback battle right now. Didn't you see Shador and Deshaun, man? It is intense out in Cleveland.
I've heard stories Gabriel's winning that battle, and that tells me you should trade for a quarterback.
Yeah, and J.J. McCarthy at least has potential.
Ooh,
I don't think he's going to be good long term, but, he was drafted in the first round for a reason, and Kevin O'Connell, I think, is a good coach who knows the position, and he was one of the guys that was in on him. So I would probably trade for him if I was one of those teams in a very specific position with needs at the position long term.
I wouldn't. I would just say, let's be bad and go get a draft pick.
Can I throw another one at you?
Yeah.
Just because I think they're a team we've talked about as on the fringe of could tear it down. Philly.
That's an interesting one.
At least it resembles the way they like to play.
Yeah, and they could be a team that, if this goes south, I could see where they move on from Jalen Hurts in the offseason, bring in somebody. Now, I'm assuming if you fire Hurts, you're cleaning house, including getting rid of Sirianni. Yeah. But I wonder if that would be something that they would consider as well.
You know what another one is? Who's the Chargers backup quarterback?
Probably somebody that's been around the league forever.
Chargers backup quarterback right now is Trey Lance. I wonder if they would do it.
Trey Lance was a 3rd overall pick. Just stick with that guy.
It's a nothing burger asset that you're probably going to have to give up. You probably give up like a 4th or 5th round pick.
Just trade Trey Lance.
Yeah, send Trey Lance in return, give him a 5th round or a conditional pick, day 3 conditional pick, and he gets to be reunited with Jim Harbaugh. He's the backup quarterback. Justin Herbert has some injury issues that we've talked about in the past. He is going to have an idea on what the system and the terminology is like in L.A. I think he's from California, if I'm not mistaken, with J.J. McCarthy. Not that that's a huge deal, but maybe you just say, hey, this is our backup quarterback for the next 3 years. He's cheap, cost-controlled. We just bring him in here, and that becomes the guy behind Justin Herbert. There's never an expectation that he becomes the starter, but he's in a comfortable situation, and he can go be groomed behind Justin Herbert in L.A. I could see something like that, too.
Yeah, I could see that one. And that would make some sense. Like you said, with Harbaugh, you've got that connection. And if he's not expected to start, I think that's probably perfect for him.
Yeah, I could see him being a pretty good backup for the next 5 to 7 years.
That's what his career is going to be, is just I don't even know if it's a pretty good. I think it's just a fine backup that gets a couple of starts and you're good with.
What about Houston?
That's another one that I was thinking about. I just don't know that you want to bring that in.
Yeah. You're probably right, because since it's a contract year for Stroud. But you're trying to get ahead of the curve, right?
Also, I prefer him not to throw the football, and Houston seems to like to throw the football.
Well, ideally, Stroud will pick up his ish, and you give him a contract, you don't got to worry about it.
Stroud doesn't seem like the guy you want to bring the internal competition up a notch to.
By the way, just to clear it up, J.J. McCarthy, very much not from California. Originally from Chicago area, and then eventually, this is what I remembered. I couldn't recall where it was. Went to IMG Academy down in Florida for high school. So not in California. Did go to a big-time school, but in
Dolphins should trade for him because, well, it can't get worse than where we're at.
And they've got Malik Willis, and he could be your backup. Malik Willis has some injury questions as well. I could see that.
And if I'm the Dolphins, it's already an issue.
Jacksonville, same thing.
Might as well. Well, they got Trevor Lawrence, man.
Yeah, backup quarterback. Like, if you're trading a 5th round pick, that's nothing, man. Some of these teams, I could see him going somewhere that they just decide, hey, he plays kind of similar stylistically to our starter, and he could maybe win us a game or two.
Like Cleveland stylistically, can't hit an open wide receiver.
Just keep him in Minnesota.
They would be trading for him as a starter.
Just keep him in Minnesota. Kyler's going to fail within 5 weeks, and then you can just play J.J. McCarthy and finish the season off. This guy over here thinking Kyler's going to be winning the division.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, we're going to give you an opportunity to win a pair of single-day passes for the BMW Championship. That'll be taking place August the 18th through the 23rd. It's a week away. Passes include access to the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra. See the top PGA players in the world. They compete while enjoying the Trophy Club. presented by Michelob Ultra. Find your shot to score a pair of single-day passes at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 ESPN mobile app, or just stay tuned for the next 5 minutes. We'll do that here on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Look, kids are already starting to head back to school, and that means busy mornings, carpools, after-school activities, and plenty of miles on your vehicle. But before you hit the road, here's what you do. Head outside, take a look at your tires, and bring your vehicle to Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, and they'll take a look at your whole car. Every visit to Dobbs comes with a free digital vehicle condition report to give you total peace of mind for your vehicle. This report includes pictures, suggestions sent straight to your phone so you see what Dobbs sees. No guesswork, total transparency. Only Dobbs gives you a fixed forever warranty, which covers parts and labor for as long as you own your car. Dobbs has the lowest tire prices in town, guaranteed. Crosswind tires start at $59, and Dobbs offers 0% financing on all tires and services with Affirm. So check them out today. Dobbs, go to Dobbs.com.
Hey, that's Alex. He's T-Bone. I'm
Hey.
BK. We've got your chance right now to score a pair of single-day passes for the BMW Championship that's taking place at Belle Reve coming up a week from today. That is when the tournament begins, and you have a chance to score a pair of tickets all week long here on 101 ESPN on each and every show. Right now, 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you are texter number 101 with the correct answer to the following question, you're going home with that pair of single-day passes to the BMW Championship. Here is the question for you. Earlier today, I said that if this happens during a game, it should not count, or it should rather count as an earned run for the player. What is this? What is it that if this happens, it should count as an earned run for the player? If you have the correct answer and your texture number 101, you are going home with that pair of single-day passes. Again, that's to the BMW Championship. It is happening next week at Belle Reve. All right, Alex, before we get out of here today, Cardinals yesterday had a tough one. They lost the game 6-5 against the Phillies. They now find themselves 4.5 games out of the wild card, and it doesn't get any easier from here. It is Christopher Sanchez on the mound today. He leads all Major League pitchers in wins above replacement this season.
Nice. We got him.
It is Zach Wheeler tomorrow, who is one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. And after thoracic outlet syndrome, which ends most careers, he has come back and has pitched to a 2.7 ERA, and he's 10-3 on the year.
My goodness.
Let's start with this. We'll look back before we look forward. What was your biggest takeaway from the game last night?
It's the Jimmy Crooks at bat. It's the rally that they went through and getting to Jimmy Crooks and sticking with him there, and then him not taking advantage of the opportunity placed in front of him. And look, I understand it's frustrating that they didn't use somebody else in that spot. I liked the decision to stick with Jimmy Crooks. Now, I've had a change of heart after we talked with Derrick Goold, and you can go back and listen to that on the podcast. I do think if the same situation arose tonight, I would pinch hit for him. But in that spot, the whole point of where you're at right now, yes, you're trying to win in this series, but you're also trying to figure out what you got. And that was a massive moment for Jimmy Crooks that I think now you've learned. Look, big moments, man, you got to make contact and you got to work on this. But that's the moment I think you're going to take away from this one. Herrera's starting to look like himself, Burleson as well. But a big moment like that and a young player didn't come through, which that's the learning and growth experience of a rebuild.
Yeah, they were stuck in a very unique situation last night in that scenario. I mean, me and BK were at the game sitting next to each other in the press box, and I pointed to that spot, I think 1 or 2 batters before he came up, and I said, if they are about development, Crooks will get this at bat here in this half, right? If they are about this is a playoff caliber series and we still believe we are in this race even though we sold off and we think these games are important and we want to try and win them, you pinch hit for Jimmy Crooks. They decided last night in the moment we are going to let Crooks take that at bat and have this as a development moment. I would have pinch hit for him. You know, I think you're still in the race a little bit here, and I think you have to earn those at-bats. And in my opinion, he hasn't earned an opportunity for that at-bat. He should have been pinch hit for, but I get it from their perspective. They are just in a unique spot. It's a spot they've been in a lot over the last 3 years, but they're stuck in the middle right now, and it's going to be interesting to see how Ollie kind of navigates these big game decisions of, all right, do I go to a kid that is trying to learn how to handle the pressure of the situation, or do I go to my bench, or do I go to a higher leverage reliever because I trust that guy more when the game is tight?
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway, but it was also just, it was a sloppy game by the Cardinals. They did not play a great game of baseball. It was a lot of walks. It was the error by Hunter Dobbins. And it wasn't just Dobbins with the walks. It was also Ferguson coming in and walking 3 batters as well.
Good.
I think he faced 4 batters, allowed 1 hit and 3 walks.
Yeah.
It's not what you want.
And the hit was a double.
Isn't that what Heim told us yesterday? He's like, well, once it presented us to go get Caleb Ferguson, we had to change our moves. It's like, ooh.
And to be clear, I think it was a good move. I think Caleb Ferguson is a pretty good reliever. He's got a 3.9 ERA on the season, and that's despite playing most of his games at the Great American Ballpark. That guy's decent. He's not a terrible reliever for his career, and this is not like a new guy. He's, for his career, had a 3.7 ERA, and he's been around for a decade. I'd 360
rather
games.
have that international money.
I hear you. I was fine with the move. I thought it was a good one, honestly. It just didn't work yesterday. It was a disaster yesterday, and walking the 9-hole hitter, you can't do that when you've got Kyle Schwarber coming up, and this is what you came in the game for, is to get this dude out, and then you can decide what to do with Kyle Schwarber, and you can potentially pitch around him. You can find your outs within the lineup. They didn't do that. It was just an ugly performance by the Cardinals, and the sloppy play when you're going up against the Phillies, even if they have no bullpen available, hey, you're going to get yourself beat. They've just got too many dudes in the lineup that can potentially beat you that way. And yesterday, Kyle Schwarber did. Going into tonight's game, Andre Palante versus Christopher Sanchez.
Well, at least it'll be a fun pitching duel.
Hey, man, it's kind of tough to make the argument in favor of the Cardinals, but what are you looking forward to here?
Just honestly, kind of more Palante, just to see if the continued success continues with that. But it's your big four. It's what does Weatherholt, what does Burley, what does Walker, what does Herrera do? Because those are the guys you're watching right now when it comes to facing off against these top pitchers.
I'm just going to enjoy watching Sanchez tonight. I mean, he's going to be disgusting. I don't think they're going to match up well with him. Palante, I think, will keep it close. I think they lose this one like 4-1.
I'm looking forward to seeing Blaze Jordan back in the lineup. I would assume he's going to be in there against the left-handed pitcher. And Everson Ferrera. I want to see what he looks like in this lineup. I was laughed at yesterday as I mentioned that at the ballpark, but I think he's interesting. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's next here on 101 ESPN.